Girl, you the best, and she love me when I'm in it, and she never be pretending, nothing is friend. She gon' tell you what she bought it, cause she know you can't afford it. Girl, you can get it, looking exquisite, no competition, stay on the pivot. Who be watching, they be plotting, she so motherfucking independent. Mama be big, got on her grind, she had to get out her mama house.
Hello. Welcome to the E Spot with Camille. And I feel like I almost never mention who's my intro music. So I just thought about that. I should definitely give a shout out to Breed Beats for the independent song that plays pretty much 90% of the time as my intro. So he's out of Virginia. I just want to make sure I give him a shout out because I feel really bad interviewing all these musicians and I have never shouted him out. And I just thought of it just now. But speaking of musicians, and an East Coast born and raised ish. I'm so excited to have Iajhi Hampden, who is the son of Ivan Hampden that I had on a couple of months ago. I think it's already been because time's just flying by. And he's also a drummer, a composer, an instructor. Can't wait to have him on. And we both went to the same school. I'm sure you've seen me do my Eagle Pride sign a few times at this point. And so I'm just so excited to have him. Please, without any introduction, make sure you share, like, and comment and subscribe so others can also see this wonderful interview we're about to have with Mr. Iajhi. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Eagle Pride Amplified. So how is everything going for you you're in wonderful West Coast California, Lucky? My bad. I put you on mute for a minute there. Sorry. Let's try that again.
No
So,
worries.
welcome to the E Spot. Thank you so much for being my guest, my fellow Eagle.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So you've soared off to California to keep it on the bird theme.
I did. It's well. I mean, I'm sure that as much as it's been an interesting time, for everyone, it's been an interesting time for us. It's been an interesting time for California. It's been an interesting time for music. So we are kind of taking things day by day. I haven't actually had a live performance in 4 months, I want to say. I think
What's been your
March.
longest downtime? And because you've been performing since pretty much coming out of the womb with musical parents.
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, I have been able to record, which has been good. It's allowed me to like still play drums, but actual performance and like performing like with people and like vibing
The
with like
energy.
audiences and stuff, that has kind of gone away. I mean, and they're trying to like get live music up and running again. I mean, there are some people, the bars and the restaurants here have done like outside seating, and then they have like the bands outside, and then like there's people doing like drive-in concerts, where like you get to stay in your car, and but it's still, the I guess the difficulty is like it's hard to really like establish what's what, like what to believe, like is it okay to like get on a plane? Is it okay, like and then like how what's my level of risk? And I think, if I have a 4-year-old, and you know for us as a family, we've kind of just resolved to like not take any work until we know for sure that it's okay. And like I think if I played saxophone, I'd have a little more control of, okay, I can wipe down the saxophone. But then like drums, there's like 15 pieces of equipment. It's like you got your cymbals, you got your bass drum, you got your pedals, you got your sticks, and like too many surfaces, to have to keep track of. And then when you're done, it may come back in the house, so then it's like this, so I mean, but
It's pretty risky.
thankfully, like I was able to qualify for like unemployment, which kind of made the the I guess reality for us, like, do we need to risk going outside? Do we need that money right
Mhm.
now, considering like we are still able to pay rent,
Right. Right.
which allowed us to kind of stay true to that initial decision.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and then a lot of the recording that I've done has been like paid recording through like some online websites, a couple of friends. People are trying to take this time and get all their creative juices out because they have the
Yeah.
time now. And so
Right.
um, that's helped a lot, in terms of like subsidizing
Hmm.
income, which has been good.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of artists and people who generally, I mean, like they can't work right now. It's good to hear different streams of income that people are still being able to do from home remotely in the entertainment or arts field. So, but I want to make sure we talk about how you got started. But I'm curious: is your 4 year old, has he start or she has they started playing any instruments yet?
Yeah, 4-year-old. It's my son,
Okay.
and then I have a 21-year-old daughter.
Okay.
Um, but my son, yes.
So we didn't go to school at the same time because if he has a 21-year-old daughter, I'm kidding.
Well, okay, so
I'm just messing with
actually,
you.
yeah, we.
No, I'm totally messing with you because I could have
um,
a 21-year-old daughter easily.
right, right. So my daughter was born the beginning of my sophomore year at Central.
Oh, oh wow.
Yeah, which kind of forced me into the gig scene while I was in school.
Okay.
So like just trying to find a way to make money from music was
Mm.
like its own thing. But my son, yeah, he's not like technically playing drums, but he's got like really really good rhythm. Um, and um, my my girlfriend is a singer, and so from that he's got like really really good like pitch. Like when he watches a cartoon,
Yeah.
he sings exactly the notes that the cartoon is singing, as opposed to like his own
Wow.
version of, yeah, which has been very interesting. And so he's aware of like the notes on the piano. He's aware of like the different pieces of the drums, and uh, definitely has the gene for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
speaking of that, Gene, how young were you when you started playing an instrument? And what instrument did you start with? Was it automatically always drums?
Um, well, so my mom plays piano, so we always had a piano in the house.
Okay.
So piano, I guess, was technically the first instrument, and then um, uh, my parents separated, and then but my dad was like my mom's drummer, so when they separated, she needed like a drummer. So when I was 9 years old, I became my mom's drummer, and that was how like I started playing drums in
Wow. So you
Greensboro.
like brings a whole new meaning to the man of the house. You know, like normally you think
Yeah,
of when when the father's out of the house, or they and that whole um like in different movies and so on, they're like the boy has to step up and be the man of the house, and you had to be the drummer in the house now. So
yeah, it was
that's had to
interesting.
be
I
pretty
mean,
neat to work with your mom too, though.
in a really good way. Like it was a very interesting thing because like they both there's like for musicians there's like a general uh there's like these like I don't want to say rules of engagement, but like the older musicians kind of tell it like it is,
Mhm.
like your feelings aren't connected to what they have to say. They're like, hey, you didn't do that right, man. You need to fix it, or or like have you seen the Clark sisters?
I
uh
have not.
so
I
there's like a
know.
scene where like one of the choir directors throws a shoe at one of the singers for singing a wrong note, but like consistently singing a wrong, like that's a real thing. Like if you like the old jazz community, like,
Yeah.
you know, they're like, you got to get it together. And it's not, I think like the millennials and the younger generations, there's way more of a PC kind of environment. Like, you know,
Or
like
they'll
you,
fix it in post.
yeah, exactly. And you know,
It's
or
okay.
like you
Yeah.
just won't get a phone call again kind of
Yeah.
thing. Oh, there
Or
he is.
there's dad. Yeah. Or gosh, I can't remember what artist it was. And it might have been even your dad that told me the story where I don't know, because I watch all these documentaries too, so it starts blurring together.
Mhm, mhm.
But they would he was like, I'm gonna deduct you for that, right?
Oh man, oh man.
You're
James
paying for a studio
Brown,
time. I don't think it was
James
your
Brown
dad,
was
but yeah.
classic.
Okay.
Yeah, James Brown was classic for that. He would do it on stage, and the way he would do it is that he would throw up like a hand signal, like, you know, like if you messed up, he'd be like, "Yeah, that's $5 coming out of your check," you know, or
Kind of
he'd
love
do it
it. I'll
two
be honest.
times.
I'm gonna be watching like all the old James Brown concerts now just to see because I love those shady moments of the older generation stuff. Like it just cracks me up because they, as a kid, you just looked at, well, maybe not from your point perspective, but you just looked at them in a way where they were just iconic, bigger than life, and just to see a different side of them, where they were all business and all about their money and making sure things were right.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating to hear and just like, oh, what so
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, like that.
Have you worked with anybody that, well, let's start with how you started. So you were piano, you started playing with your mom as
Yeah,
a drummer at 9 years old.
at 9 years old.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my dad gave me a drum set that he had from, I think, his like teenage years.
Oh, wow.
Um, and and we took it down to North Carolina, and um, you know, I kind of learned uh to play at Bethel AME Church in Greensboro,
Okay.
and so my mom was the musical director at the church, and uh, they, you know, every denomination of church is kind of different, you know,
Mhm.
like grown Kojic Church from a musical standpoint kind of can be different than like Baptist churches, which can kind of be different from AME churches, and like it was interesting because that was like the that was the outlet,
Yeah.
you know. Oh,
He's saying what kind of drums, I guess, the
the
1970
Rogers. So
Rogers.
there was the gray Rogers, but there was this black. Oh man, it wasn't Remo. I think it might. No, it wasn't Remo. There was this black drum set before the Rogers, and it was like a 10-inch tom and this 14-inch that didn't have lugs on it. It had like like these weird like switches that weren't lugs, but you so you couldn't tune it necessarily. And I'm trying to remember.
I have no idea what you're talking
Ludwig. I
about. I know
think it
all
was
the drummers do. Yeah.
yeah, it was a Ludwig, this black Ludwig, and like the bass drum uh didn't have like a front drum head on it. It like I remember it like very like specific. This yeah, it's black Ludwig before the
Oh,
Rogers.
the Zigmar, I think.
Sigmar. Okay. That's what it was.
You
Yeah,
guys
because
have like
the
your own
Rogers
language.
came later. Like I was a teenager when he gave me the Rogers. I think I was like 12 or 13 when I got the Rogers.
Okay.
That's so funny. Um, but so going back to the church thing, like the the AME church was very connected to like hymns. And so for a lot of the piano players, you had to be able to read in order to work at the AME churches.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, in terms of black culture, there was still, you know, some funk and soul that needed to happen, you know, in order to relate to like the um congregation, so um the advantage for me was that um I had started reading music at a very early age from that experience, which I didn't know was um going to help me in my career. I didn't understand, what that meant. It's like another part of your vocabulary. Can you read? Can you work with electronics? Can you play different styles? The versatility just helps you um, work more.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody knows you can read, or like you can play like traditional rock and roll or traditional jazz, like the more people you can involve yourself with,
Right.
and my parents knew and understood the value of that well before I even understood what it was,
Yeah.
and then let's see, my first instrument out of drums was the flute in the sixth
That's
grade.
what I played. That's what I played it. I
I
played it in
played
the 6th grade too.
Yeah,
That's
I went to Bragtown High School in Durham. I mean, middle school in Durham, and
okay.
then
I know
went
where
from
that's at. That's
there.
North Durham, right?
It
No,
is no
no, actually,
Bragtown
it's in the
is well, I guess yes, it's technically North Durham. It's over by
I think that's
by
where I used to take taekwondo at, was near Bragtown.
yeah, the hospital,
Duke Hospital or Durham Regional.
Durham Regional.
This
Yep.
is so weird. Almost never have locals on, and you're like in LA, and we're talking about Durham, and like I have to get a GPS to get everywhere here. I have no idea how to
Wow.
get anywhere. It's
Wow.
grids work for me. So like New York City, I can understand. LA, I can
Hmm.
still like my friend will tell me they're on Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and I'll be like, yeah, I know exactly where you're at. Nothing in North Carolina. So I'm so impressed with myself right now. My mom is probably like, because
Wow.
yeah, but I know
Yeah.
that one. I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to
All
pass
right.
Durham General on the way to school like all the time, and that was
Okay.
where flute happened, but I already knew how to read at that point.
Mhm.
Um, or at least already had like a concept because I was reading like in church.
Okay.
Um, and um, I think Carrington, I did flute for seventh and eighth, and then I switched to saxophone at Northern High School, and
Okay.
played like the tenor sax for like a year, and then switched to the drum line. Uh, I think around like 10th grade.
Wow. So that's now when you were learning all these different instruments, was there ever a time your parents were kind of encouraging you one way or the other, or was there
No,
they
no,
just were just happy you were
it
into it?
actually, I mean, it's weird. So like, if you grow up around it, like it's like, okay, if your parents were in the military, like, or your parents were in like computer science, a lot of times just by the nature of seeing that and being around it, uh, a lot of kids have an awareness of it, and a lot of them go into that field,
Mm,
like professional sports, kind of. You see a lot of people who had parents that were in professional sports, and so the awareness of it is there. But then my parents were also aware of like the hardships that are connected to it, because it although it's a full-time job, you go through periods where you aren't necessarily working, and
mhm.
so like it the goal is to like create like a steady salary for yourself, but like, you know uh, although like COVID has never any something like this hasn't happened since, what are they saying, like the Spanish
The Spanish flu, yeah, the
flu, right?
1800s, yeah.
But
Mhm.
you run into things like, like
Well, for like actors, it's the writer strike, or there's different strikes,
Yeah,
like,
you know,
or
there
it
was
just
there was like the world
HBT
trade,
law.
like 9/11
Hmm.
and you know that whole thing. And like there's these moments where, you know, you just may not be working, or like things are just slow. Like people go to concerts mostly like in the spring and the summer. And so like, you know, then after like Thanksgiving and Christmas, like everybody, and New Year's, everybody spent all of their money. So, you know, January and February, like for us, is typically like just slow. And so,
Mhm.
you know, for them, you know, knowing that, you know, they were more of the idea of like not forcing music on me. You know,
Mhm.
like if I wanted to be in medicine or if I wanted to be in sports. Like I played football. I started playing football like seventh grade through like high school, and like finally decided that I wanted to be a musician going into my senior year of high school.
Okay.
Um, but they were like, hey, you don't have to do that. Like it's gonna be there. You can do it for fun if
Right.
you want. There's so many other things that you know you can do. But it was like the coolest thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it was
No, I
like
can
I got to
relate because,
watch like right,
yeah, because
exactly.
like my mom was a stunt woman and my dad was film producer, assistant director. And so I had zero interest of ever being a stunt woman because I
Mhm,
saw the bruises and the physical
mhm,
stuff. But I mean, I
mhm.
did like the car race stuff. So she would sometimes, her and my dad would take me out and let me like spin up a rental car or whatever. So that was
Right,
fun, and
right.
probably shouldn't admit to that on air. Anyway, no, it wasn't in North Carolina. So anyway, but one thing I also noticed, much like you said about the lows and sometimes of not working, is that I would
Mhm,
see for times they weren't working, which meant they had more time with me, but it also changed how we ate during that time, what kind of entertainment we did. Like it wasn't very obvious, but it was more like
mhm.
we had a budget, and it was such a difference when my father would, or my mom would secure employment. Then like, hey, let's go to all the like one year he took me to all of the amusement parks to make it
Mhm,
up to me for my
mhm,
birthday or something. I don't even remember
mhm.
why, but like we went to all of the Six Flags and stuff, and it was things like that that you got to do too, that it was just like, oh, this is the best job ever. But at the same time, I wanted that normalcy for a while, so it always felt like
Yeah.
something I could back, like I had a backup. And like one of my cousins, he does it full time, and he went to Carnegie Mellon and all that stuff for it. And he made a point of saying, if you can do anything else, do it, because it also, it's emotionally draining as well to just never know whether that next job's going to come, or having to jump through the different hoops. And unlike with music, a lot of times on the film side, you're also having to play or do things that are not necessarily degrading, but the stereotypical stuff to get work. And
Man,
so
there's
it's
so
like,
much to be
I don't
said
do
about
it.
all of that. Like, so getting to California, and I don't want to skip too much, but like,
Yeah.
there was a huge adjustment in like understanding how much people are paying attention to image and how it relates to like how you get work. And it was like it was very off-putting, you know,
Mhm.
um to understand like it's not discrimination. I don't want to call it that, but like, you know, the TV world is
Mhm.
connected to the music world in that sense, in that like the labels and the managements are very aware, like to the point where like it's okay to have like a white guitar player in an R&B band as long as like the rest of the band is black, but
Yeah.
it's not all right to have like, you know, and I'll say it's changed, but like, you know, I got here in like 2006, and so my first experience was like, is a singer named Ashley Parker Angel, and he was in a band called is it Boys Zone? Not Boys Zone. O Town, I think.
Okay.
That was a part of the first like P Diddy's making of the band, and so MTV had picked up a reality show for him, and in order to get the gig, which is another story, it came through this really wonderful musical director and arranger named Ray Chu, who
Hmm.
used to work at for the Apollo, and so Ray Chu and the crew. Ray Chu was the band leader and the musical director for the Apollo, but he's done a lot of things. He's doing uh, up until COVID happened, he had been the musical director for Dancing with the Stars, and before that, he was doing American Idol. And
Wow.
uh,
Okay.
I am kind of like a family friend of his because he was the musical director for Ashford and Simpson when my dad was in the band. So I met
Okay.
Ray Chu when I was like 6 years old, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
But he was like, look, in order to get this gig, you have to dress like you play in like in a rock band. You have to go look up like
Mm.
these like modern day rock bands and find like some ripped jeans and some Chuck Taylors and like a flannel
Right.
shirt, and that's how you need to dress to be on this gig.
I had
Which,
no idea.
yeah, but the image of the audition, like, I think I've seen like even like kind of black female actors uh get typecasted into only getting auditions for like these kind of like weird parts that are like that involve assumptions that like they either aren't educated or they
Mm.
are, I don't know, like overly sexualized,
Oh,
or not like images where like, oh, I am playing an attorney, or I am
mhm.
playing, and so it's kind of similar in the sense that like I had to do that, I had to look like a member of Green Day,
Or
you
Anthrax
know.
is what I was thinking because of the beard.
Yeah, like in order to be a part of this group, but I ultimately got fired because I didn't have long hair, which kind of meant, outside of having like
That's why
dreadlocks and
Slash
a
will never cut
perm,
it. Yeah.
they were looking for, somebody with a different hair texture. Now on the flip side, I decided to stay in LA, but now I'm staying in LA with like all this like rock and roll clothing, and all of the
Yeah.
like R&B and church people, because of how I dress, assume that I'm a rock and roll guy.
Right.
And like, and I'm coming to LA with like a master's degree in like jazz studies and performance, but like not even, really getting the opportunity to deal with those people, uh at least up front, because it looked like, I was this rock guy. And then like in the on the audition end of it, it's the same. So like, when you I did an audition back in the day for Rihanna, and it was like, no, you got to go look like this, R&B guy. And then I did an audition for um oh
Moving out of frame on me.
huh
You keep moving out of frame on me.
oh
There
I'm
we go.
sorry,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. It's
um
mirrored, so it's like the opposite. Yeah.
okay,
I wanted to make
Hillary
sure I saw you.
Duff, you
Oh,
know but the outfit had to be like very specific,
yeah.
and they're very different from Rihanna. And even my first touring gig was with this group, Ali and AJ, and they
Mhm.
were on a Disney show, and we headlined a tour, and then we opened for Hannah Montana, um, when she was like doing the tour where everybody was like selling tickets on eBay, like that huge tour in 2007. But in rehearsals, we had to dress a certain way in order to reflect, being in like this like kind of pop rock situation. Especially if like there was management showing up, or you couldn't show up, like I guess a rehearsal with like a local band, or a non like national act, going like sweatpants and a t-shirt and a hoodie, but these
Yeah.
rehearsals, like, they want you to wear like, you know brand name items, and it's a very interesting, but it relates to, what you're saying about how it connects to TV and film, because there's that side of it, and then on the financial end, like, a film may last from like 2 months to like 6 months, and then like there's this period in between where you kind of have to figure out, what to do. So from a touring perspective, it's kind of the same thing. There's some people who are fortunate enough to go for, 12 months, 14 months. But really, a lot of the things that I experienced, the longest being like 6 months with some
Okay.
breaks here and there. And then, like, if it was 9 months to a year, it was like, okay, we would go out for a month and then have 2 weeks off, and go out for 2 weeks and then have like a month off, and then go out for another month. And it was great because I was still employed. But like, when those things would end,
Mhm.
you know, there's a lot of gap in trying to figure out like how you're gonna like pay your bills and cover yourself. And
And it's emotional with it too, I would notice with
it is,
very
but
emotional.
especially with social media,
Mm.
because social media had just started around 2005 or 6. So as it progressed, you'd be sitting at home and like all your friends on Facebook are like, you know I
Selfies
had a great
behind the
time in
van.
Japan, and you're like, man, I want, yeah, it is
Yeah,
depressing in that sense, or
yeah.
or like seeing your friends like land like, TV commercials, like somebody being on like a Pepsi ad, or you know
Mhm.
and like you're kind of sitting at home struggling. It's
Yeah.
definitely hard to, and like you it starts to make you feel like either you're not good enough, or like you need to kind of get better and improve. And I mean, that's I think a constant thing. I think
Mhm.
being a musician as a career, like, you're always growing from your experiences. Like, every artist that I've toured with, like, I've gained and learned something new that I've been able to apply, to my playing, or to how I deal with like traveling, or how I deal with like, the potential of what's going to happen after,
Yeah.
the
What are
tour.
some of those things you've learned, or just in case there's people out there like right now, they're probably going through that same feeling. Maybe not so much that they're seeing other people doing stuff, but maybe the throwback Thursdays. Those are the days that get me because I'm like, wait, y'all were getting jobs in Japan, like like you mentioned. It's like, why was that? And I'm like, oh, because they wanted blondes. That's why I didn't get submitted, or like I'm thinking that
Yeah.
way sometimes too, or I'll see I'm like, "Oh, the other black model got it," because usually being in the South, it's and I'm learning it's not just the South anymore, but or hopefully things will change future-wise, but if as far as jobs here, unlike when I worked with my dad, because most of his films were predominantly black or very diverse regardless,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
usually if they hired a black producer, that's just the way it was.
mhm,
But,
mhm,
he I just had that perception. And so, like, when I started working on my own, getting my own gigs through my own agent, or even by myself, it would just be me, maybe one other black female model
mhm,
tops. There might be a black male model that's playing my love interest or something to that effect,
mhm,
but it was never, or even in films and commercials and so on, I didn't have a
mhm.
lot of interactions with other black women models or actresses. So whenever we did see each other, it was like this whole bonding and enjoying
Mhm,
each other. But at
mhm,
the same time, I mean, I made friends with everybody because I don't,
mhm.
I don't hold race against someone for a reason why we can be friends or working together, but it just like now when I see Throwback Thursday, sometimes I'm like, what? She was getting all this work, or I was, and here I was struggling and doing all these extra parts, or just thinking it was slow for everyone when it might have been just slow for me. And I was
Yeah,
like from
you
one of
know
my agents told me, I'm like I used to be, because before the pandemic, I was one of the most worked. So it's like, wow, they got to do all that stuff though. I was just working here on
hmm
the East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the networks and the relationships,
Mm.
like coming to LA was very different because I didn't understand how big this network was. Like North
Mm.
Carolina, in Durham, the jazz musicians know the musicians that like only play in church, and those musicians know the rock guys because you're dealing with a smaller population. And out here, the people who tour on the rock side are different than the people who tour on the jazz fusion side. Those people are different from like the film score people and like the studio producers and the people who know like the managers or like the musical directors
Yeah.
or like the TV shows that have musicians on them. They're all like these separate entities and they all kind of
But you've
hang
done kind of
differently.
all of them, because I mean, you did MTV TRL late night with
Hmm.
Carson Daly. You did,
Hmm.
so you got to do the TV side and even the Oprah show, and
Hmm.
but then you also performed with like Macy Gray, Raphael Saadiq,
Hmm.
like you mentioned Hannah Montana. It's so funny saying her name out loud instead of I can't. Oh, Miley Cyrus. I'm like, I can't think what her real name is now.
Right, right.
But Miley Cyrus and different people like you were able to make all those different transitions and not really be pigeonholed. What do you think helped with that? Like, how do you think that made you be able to
The
go through all those different networks?
the the versatility, I think,
Just knowing how to dress too helped.
yeah, that thing, like having to ask like what the dress code or what the expectation was. Um I think um there were a couple of things that kind of helped establish that, but when I actually decided to move, that was the realization that like this is where this community lives. Like at the time, like I said, it was pre-social media, so I used to read this magazine called Modern Drummer,
Okay.
and you would see like the drummers who had a lot of these big gigs, but you didn't necessarily know where they lived. You would just read these articles. And so when I got here, like I met a lot of them and I was like, oh, this is where you get this work.
Mhm.
um, and then separate from that, in starting to meet them, um, some of them knew that like I played jazz, some of them knew that I played rock, some of them knew, and so I kept meeting as many people as possible. So like
Mhm.
Carson Daly happened because I used to play at this weekly event every Sunday, and there was a drummer that I know. His name is Donald Barrett, and he went to Northern Illinois. And I went to Northern Illinois for graduate school. He wasn't there when I got there, but everybody that I knew in school who knew who he was told me to contact him. And
Okay.
so he played at this Sunday event, and the musical director for Carson Daly was the band leader for this Sunday event. It was a place called Guys. It was it was a club across from Cedar Sinai Hospital in LA.
Okay. I know where
It's
that's
been
at. Yeah.
closed. Yeah. Um,
Oh, it's closed?
not Cedar Sinai, but the
Oh,
club.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's where John Singleton was just last year. Yeah. Okay.
Right, right.
Okay. All right.
And so, my relationship with the musical director from Carson Daly
Mhm.
uh, led me to being um, on that show for a period of time,
Okay.
until Carson. What happened? Jay Leno retired shortly after that, and then came back. But when he
Mm.
retired, NBC had to change around its lineup, and Carson lost his studio as a result. So he stopped having a live band. Um,
I feel partially responsible because that's the only show I ever went to. The evening, those late night shows. I got free tickets once to Jay Leno. I didn't even watch him, but my my mother-in-law, she was obsessed with Jay Leno and said, "You got to go see a show for me." I'm like, so then one of my friends was friends with someone who booked the audience for it. He was like, "Hey, you want to go to Jay Leno?" I was like, "Why not?" Never again. It was like 4 hours. I had no idea it took so long in such
Wow.
a cold studio.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Granted, Justin Timberlake performed, so that was kind of neat,
Oh,
but
that's awesome.
it also hurt my feelings a little because he's like this big. Yeah. Was not prepared for that. I'm like, his knee looked like my elbow. It was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure you're used to that living here
Yeah,
still
no,
now, but
absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, that was like its own relationship. And then all of those musicians had their own gigs and relationships that I got like recommended to. So Donald recommended me to this original singer, which ended up being my first local gig. And every musician on that gig ended up hiring me for something else. So Donald recommended me to that gig. I had just gotten to LA. There was really no work. And I ended up meeting this guitar player who recommended me to the band that was working at Stevie's Creole Cafe. And this is like 2006. I don't know if you remember Stevie's.
I don't think I ever went there.
It was a soul food restaurant. He had one in LA, and then he had one in Encino. Kind of soul food, and I think New Orleans Creole. Yeah,
Okay.
Stevie's Creole Cafe, and they had live music on the weekends. And so from playing with this unsigned artist that Donald had me sub for him for, all of those musicians I met, and they all had different gigs with other people that they recommended me for. And then those things turned into some more work and started to get me into different fields. So then I started playing at a this non-denominational church called Agape.
I've heard of
And
it. It's huge in LA, Agape.
yeah. And
It's
so
like second to Scientology almost. Not in
yeah,
the same
not in the same
vein,
realm,
but
different
just
thing.
just it's
Um,
there because I had never heard of it until I moved there.
and that and Stevie's and Agape became like the initial income that like paid my rent. But then one of the
And
bass
they're
players.
connected to The Secret too, Agape.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
For
Michael
those
Beck.
that don't live in LA, so they can get the connection. Agape is Secret, the
Yes,
Secret book,
yes.
but
So Michael
yeah.
Beckwith was the pastor there, and he
Oh,
was
wow.
responsible for a lot of the secret, which is like the law of attraction, and
Yeah, I have
it's a
my
very
vision
good.
board right there.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So the bass player
Yeah,
who was the regular bass player there,
okay.
maybe 2 years after that, recommended me to be in the guitarist Norman Brown's band.
Mm,
And so that cycle kind of kept happening. The other thing that happened uh, previous to that was the Ray Chu recommendation put me in touch with a very influential contractor at the time named Barry Squire.
okay.
And he was responsible for um, many of the auditions that happened in Los Angeles at the time. And he was tied into Randy Jackson. Um,
No dog. That's all I got.
yes, yes, exactly,
For American Idol.
exactly. And so um, I met him, and in 2007, uh, when I met Barry Squire, I had to show up with my resume um, and then he put me in his database, and I started doing auditions for him,
Mhm.
which got me to audition for Ali and AJ. And the musical director for Ali and AJ went on to do an original project that he called me for. And then after that, he was a musical director for this artist named Amanda who wasn't signed but went on a European tour, and he hired me for that. And then after that, he went on to become the musical director for Macy Gray. And so my relationship with him, kind of was the catalyst. Yes, Randy is the man. Um, um, Became the catalyst, but that happened through it happened from my dad's relationship with Ray Chu connecting me to this guy Barry Squire, um, which also connected me to um, another big musical director named Ricky Minor, who
Mhm.
um, has done a lot of different things. And then it connected, there was all these kind of relationships that started to
Yeah.
happen. And so um, when he got the Macy Gray gig, I think there was probably about a year that he had it. And then the drum chair opened up and then I got it. And then uh, we had a couple of different people on guitar, and one of the guitar players that filled in was the musical director for Nika Costa. And so the same thing happened.
Yeah.
Macy Gray happened the majority of 2010, and then Nika Costa needed a drummer in 2011. And so I called the musical director and said, "Hey, I heard that Nika, was looking for a drummer," and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you called. You'd be perfect for this gig. Come down and audition."
Yeah.
Um, and like those relationships kind of kept happening in that way. So like on the national like touring front, they were all connected to different people, and then on the local front, Donald had introduced me to a bass player by the name of Ryan Cross, and
Mhm.
Ryan. Um, uh, was known for having a lot of work like in town, and so I would go and see Ryan perform in other spaces, and he is a upright jazz bass player, but he plays a lot of R&B and pop and top 40 music from the upright. So he we played a lot of jazz together, and that was kind of my first introduction into the jazz community. But he also had a lot of work that he was booking on his own, so I kind of got put into his roster, which got me in touch with a lot of other musicians that were also working at the time. Like I don't know if you are familiar with Kamasi Washington.
Uh,
uh,
I
he's
can't
a
say that I
sax
do.
he's a sax player,
Okay.
and he's well known now, but he is on the Kendrick Lamar
Mm.
"To Pimp a Butterfly" album.
Okay. I
But
do know that album very well.
he's in that LA community, so
Okay.
Kamasi used to work a lot with Ryan as well. Um, and then there's another songwriter out here named Jacob Luttrell, who I met through that first gig with Donald, who also had his own gigs in town, who was working a lot, and who also actually toured with Nika Costa as well. Um,
I
and
mean,
we
you're
became,
saying a lot of this is from make the relationships, but you got to give yourself a lot of credit for making that initiation of calling, like, "Hey, you guys need a drummer," or like making that first step. Because a lot of times with entertainers, we we want the jobs, but we don't go out and try to make it happen for ourselves. We just kind of wait for our agent or other ways. So it's good to hear that putting that initiative actually
yeah,
works sometimes.
and without having an agent, it became very clear that like I was a sole proprietor. I
Hmm.
think a lot of musicians, and or people with agents or managers are comfortable with waiting for the phone to ring.
Hmm.
But as a new resident of Los Angeles, I had to kind of introduce myself to these people and to these different communities in order to uh, you know get familiar with them. And in Los Angeles, so many people come with the intention of trying to take gigs but can't afford to stay, that a lot of
Hmm.
musicians kind of are standoffish up front, and you kind of have to establish yourself over the period of like 6 months to a year of being
Mhm.
around before they're like, okay,
Yeah.
this person is cool.
Right.
um
I can
so the
remember that.
it's
Not wanting to
unfortunate.
get in too close to people because it was so people were just not
you know
transportive, but I can't think of the right word because it's same here in North Carolina in a way because with the engineering industry that's so quick that they get transferred to other locations of Cisco or what Glaxo or wherever they're working at. You're like, I don't want to get close to anybody else. You're gonna move anyway, type of
Yeah,
thing. So it's the same in LA because no one's really from there. And I remember like holidays was like a ghost town because everybody would be going
absolutely,
back home where
absolutely,
they're really from or where their family's from. And I'm like,
absolutely.
well, now
Yeah,
I'm bored.
yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting. Like I think, in terms of the acting world and the music world, if you go to school for it, and I feel like it's changing, but you don't really, you get taught the fundamentals of music, but you don't really get taught that like you are becoming your own small business,
Mhm.
and you have to really function from that perspective and create like a business platform for yourself financially in order to really understand what's happening within all of this.
Yeah, and that's got to
Uh,
be difficult since like they always tell you about building a brand, but when
mhm,
you want to work with so many different versatile options, you don't
mhm,
really want to like pigeonhole yourself even with a brand because like I'm just thinking about how you were playing with rap, I'm not rap, pop and
mhm,
uh big bands and jazz, like
mhm.
your image has to kind of sit in a way where everyone would want to hire you too. That has to be difficult to try to navigate
Absolutely.
as well as something they don't teach you in
Yeah,
school.
I think like
Yeah.
the new model that I'm looking at from an entertainment front is like the Instagram comedians.
Mm.
I think a lot of them are doing it from themselves. Oh man, we did so.
All right, I
um
wanna hear that, so I'm like,
let's
I'm
get
putting it
back.
up there so I don't forget.
um
Yeah.
um you know
Oh,
the
wow, sorry, 6:53. The
Oh
time
really?
goes
Okay,
fast.
so real quick.
No, it's
So
fine.
so my first gig with Nika. So I have like these, it had some interesting Prince interactions, and I meant to touch on a couple of more things, and I don't
Yeah,
know if it's worth it to try to do like a part two where it's a little uh
definitely.
more focused, but um so yes, so Macy Gray led to Nika Costa. I went to audition for Nika Costa, and Prince was in the middle of doing his residency at the Forum, and so the I got the gig, but there was no time for Nika to rehearse, so she had to use one of her older drummers to open for Prince at the Forum. Then she didn't have a tour coming, and I was working with this guy from American Idol named Lita Wise, and Nika personally called me and said, "Hey, look, I'm going on tour. My drummer is in the band Living Color, and he needs to go work. No, Fishbone. I'm sorry, Fish is the drummer
Okay.
for Fishbone, and Fishbone is getting ready to embark on a new tour, and he's not going to be available. And I need you to come and do this tour if you're okay with it." He's like, "Look, our first show is in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Prince has put on this festival, and we're going to be opening for Prince." And I'm thinking, like, I don't get like a chance to like play a show, like almost like a rehearsal show or anything. And she was like, it'll be fine. Like, we'll rehearse, probably for 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll get the show down. And so yeah, we flew to Copenhagen. We did 2 nights for the MPG festival, and it was us. It was Raphael Saadiq, ironically, Janelle Monáe, Shaka Khan, um, and there maybe were two. There was like a brass band, and I can't remember the name of the brass band, and a couple of other acts. But we played both nights. So the first day we performed, I am watching Shaka Khan, and I'm standing backstage behind like the, so those like soundboards that they use. There's like one like
I mean, I've seen them. I think I know what they look like, but
So
no,
like
I didn't even do theater.
there's a guy that's running sound for the musicians on stage, and then there's a guy running
Okay.
sound for the for the audience. And so the guy who's running sound for the musicians on stage, you can't see him, but he can see the musicians. So I'm standing there, and I feel like this shadow next to my shoulder, and so I turn and I look, and it's Prince, like shoulder to shoulder. He's like this close, and then there's like this 6'6", 280-pound bodyguard with him, with like the jacket with the little gun print on the side. And I'm looking, and I'm like, I give him the nod, and I turn around, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I I can't talk to this guy. Like, what am I about to do? Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
I'm frozen, and I'm stuck there, and I'm
Yeah.
just kind of nodding to Shaka Khan, watching Shaka Khan play until he walks away. But what I didn't realize, so this was actually the second day. So what I didn't realize was that he is a, what is it when you don't sleep at night?
Insomniac.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had video
Yeah.
footage of the whole festival, all of the performances. So he saw me the night of the first show, and then saw who I was standing there backstage, and stood next to me, like, and acknowledged me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm freaking out, and I'm like, okay. So then I get to see them that second night do his whole show, which was the first time I got to see Prince. It was like a 3-hour show. He had
Wow.
so many hits that it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we do that. We come back, we do the tour. We play this with Nika Costa, this secret show at this club called Sayers in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And Prince shows up. And I look over, and I give him the nod, and he gives me this nod, like, yeah, I remember who you are, man. How you doing? Like, he kind of was like, yeah, you know. And so we play our show with Nika, and she's a very like funk oriented artist,
Yeah.
and they share like, like a mutual respect for like Larry Graham, who was with Sly and the Family Stone, and
Okay.
that tradition. Um, the same with Prince's relationship with Raphael Saadiq. But so we get done with the show, and Prince wants to sit in with the band, and I'm like, serious? But all the other people had been in the band previously, so they have done this like 3 and 4 times already. They're like, all right, well, we usually play this tune, we usually play that tune. So they make this announcement. It's like 2 in the morning. They're like, look, if we're gonna have another performance. If we see any cell phones, we're gonna take them and we're gonna break them. Uh, we're gonna we're gonna stop serving alcohol, but there is another performance that you should stay for. So
Okay.
he gets up, and he decides to pick the bass, and he has his back to the audience, but he's facing me. And we start playing through these Sly and the Family Stone tunes, and he was enjoying himself so much that he stayed up on the bass for like about 45 minutes. And I'm
Wow.
sitting there playing bass with Prince, and he's got his back to the audience, and he's just sitting there smiling at me for the whole time. I'm like, and it was kind of like this flight or fight response, like, I'm either going to fail at this horribly, or I am going to kick everybody's ass on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
And thankfully the latter happened. Like, the grooves were there, like all my decisions
Yeah.
on the drums were solid. And then, like, he got bored, he went and sat on the keys for maybe like a half a song, and then literally was escorted out directly to a limousine through the back door and left in like true Prince style. Like, it was the most it to this day. I am 41 years old. That has been the funkiest moment of my entire life. Like, to this day,
Yeah.
like playing with Prince, and then understanding like the history, and like where he comes from as a musician, and how talented he is on every instrument. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to hear an album, and then to see a band live, and to see, and
Mhm.
there are a lot of people like that, where like, even like the Roots and like Questlove, and you see
Mhm.
Questlove with D'Angelo, and like seeing D'Angelo live is a completely different experience. Seeing like Shaka Khan live,
Yeah.
and seeing like what
I
she
can't
can
even
still do,
imagine.
seeing Earth, Wind and Fire live. Like I got to
Oh,
see
wait,
Earth.
no, he said Aunt Shaka Khan. Yeah,
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 on
yeah,
Shaka Khan. Yeah, no, exactly. Like
yeah,
yeah, like I mean, even like in my dad's case, like seeing the Luther Band live growing up,
yeah,
the more experience I got in music, the more baffled I was about how good that band was. But it was such a big influence on me from understanding what uh national touring production was and understanding
mhm,
like what these people's roles were, what like a drum tech was, what um a production manager was, what they did, what a tour manager was. It was like being able to see like you in film, being able to see those
mhm,
behind the
mhm.
scenes like that
Yeah,
changed my life, but it changed different aspects of my life as I got older and grew. Like seeing Luther's show at like 9 and 10 years old was extremely different from seeing it at like 16 or seeing it at 18 when
yeah,
I had some experience, in understanding like, oh, this is what this is.
yeah,
And the same from like um playing with Ali and AJ. That was my first arena tour,
okay,
and how you approach it as a musician, from playing in a nightclub versus playing, in a jazz club. Um, Playing with Norman Brown really taught me how to uh, lead a band from a drum chair and set up. We'd
yeah,
have all these hits that we would play together, but like you have
mhm,
to like set that up, which is a is something that I learned in big band and had never applied it to like smooth jazz or R&B. Like big
yeah,
band, the drummer has to, so let's say the band is going ba ba da ba, and the drummer's da 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 boom doo doo. And so that concept in big band music applies to, smooth jazz. And now with the millennials, it applies to um um like R&B and like trap music and that thing. So you may hear like who's a good example? Like Kendrick Lamar. He has
mhm,
a live band. Um and
which I love.
and so like
Yeah,
there might be like a drummer, stop the we gonna be all right. You know what I mean? But what he's
yeah,
doing is setting up the band, and then the band might have a hit after that. Boom, bing, we gonna be all right. And so the concept from a musical perspective is very much the same, but you have to, the versatility and understanding that it's different vocabulary is different. So like playing with Prince has a different sense of vocabulary than playing with Macy Gray, which has a different sense of vocabulary from, playing with Ali and AJ, which was different from Lita Wise. And then there's this older gentleman named Engelbert Humperdinck, who I toured with in 2015 for about a year.
mhm.
He is a part of the original Rat Pack. So he was around with
Wow.
the era. Yeah, he was around with the era of like Sammy
Sammy
Davis
Davis, Frank
Jr.,
not
uh,
Frank Sinatra. Oh, yeah, Frank Sinatra. I'm like, Frank
Sinatra. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Tony Bennett. And his music was a combination of like doo-wop, 50s doo-wop, and like big band kind of swing and jazz.
Yeah.
And that was, directly connected to a lot of the training I got at Central and at Northern Illinois. Um, and its own, sense of vocabulary.
Yeah,
Engelbert, yeah.
yeah.
Um, how much time we have left? Are we
We're over.
over
Yeah,
time?
we're definitely over. But I don't care. Yeah, I'm not gonna do. I like to be considerate of people's time. But since you have your beautiful instrument right there, do you mind playing a little something and then we'll let you go?
I mean, yeah, I guess you know,
Mm.
um
One of your favorite genres to play, or
uh,
or
it's interesting now. Like it's a very, I don't necessarily have like a favorite now. I
or
mean,
anything,
like
just whatever comes to your
like
mind first is fine.
there's like I think what I could probably say is that within what I'm saying about vocabulary, there's a like for drums. So I know there's certain things you can see and can't, but this is like the ride cymbal.
Mhm.
And in terms of like volume, jazz is, from a drum set standpoint, very much led by the ride cymbal, and then the this is
Oh.
the hi-hat. And so I mean, oh, I'm
No, no, no. My headphones are so good. It like scared me because I thought something was coming from behind.
I'm gonna back this mic up.
No, you're totally fine. It's not you. It was me. I,
Um,
I do
no,
this
but
all
that
the
mic
time with
is
our
very
surround sound.
that mic is very loud right now because I'm using it
It's
for my
flashbacks from Central.
work. um, so from the
Basketball
perspective
games. Yeah.
uh, of a jazz thing, you're very much, so the
Gosh, it
Erica
sounds like
Badu.
my drum machine almost perfectly. One of the options you can choose.
Exactly. So that the Erica Badu
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that's originally a Miles Davis song called "So What," and so
Okay.
that is, it's a very much a jazz song, and it's the driving force behind it is the ride cymbal. And I'm gonna turn this mic down while
No,
when
you're fine.
okay.
Do you know how long it's been since I heard live music? I mean, since my
Um,
mom asked her dad if he would play his drum since it was right there.
and then you have like on the like like I don't know, like on the hip hop side, you have, are you familiar with uh Jay Dilla,
No,
or like Slum
I'm bad with
Village?
names. Yes, I do know
Slum
something.
Village. So, that's a very different thing because it was, most of those drum beats are programmed from a drum machine. It's a famous drum machine called the MPC. It's made by
Okay.
Akai. And then the guy who made it his name is Roger Lynn, and Roger Lynn was responsible for the Lynn drum, which is the drum machine that Prince used all the time. So all those Prince songs,
Wow.
right? So in terms of the history of the connection, but like them, Common, um, Most Def, Buster Rhymes, Tribe Called Quest. They were very much connected to this producer Jay Dilla, and Jay was known for making kind of these not unorthodox, but just beats that weren't, like the old hip hop community was sampling older records. So there's a song called "Impeach the President" that I use all the time. Me and my dad were actually laughing about this the other day, but you'll know this beat right away, like.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I've heard it on KRS-One too, maybe.
Exactly. KRS,
Yeah.
Mary J. Blige, but what they were doing was they were sampling vinyl at the time,
Okay.
and eventually, like the law kind of caught up to that, and you had to spend money to get permission to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
it depended on your budget, but what Dilla did a lot of sampling, but he would take a sample and then manipulate it so it wasn't the exact thing. And so sometimes he would have to get a clearance or permission, but then his drums were very like, I'm trying to think of, it's not a song that anybody would know necessarily, but the drums had like a very unorthodox way that they felt, but it
Mm-hmm.
was like very different in how you played it. So like he'd have like a pattern like this. And it was very like trying to think what's like a common song that like a
Oh, don't put me on the spot. I listen to a lot of Public Enemy. That's probably the only or in
Uh,
Ariana Grande because that's the only
okay.
thing I can listen to in front of my daughter lately. Sorry, but you hip hop artists make it really hard to listen to music in front of your kids now. So I'm like trying to think.
Uh,
Ah,
but
yeah.
within all of those things, they come with like different sets of vocabulary on this particular instrument. Like but it's all related to making people dance. All of the genres that I'm talking about. It has like this head nod factor, but then historically, jazz from the 30s really until the like British invasion, until rock and
Mhm.
roll was pop music in America. And
Right.
so these people were making people dance. They were coming to see these artists for dance halls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was what the intention was for jazz until rock and roll kind of replaced jazz as popular music. And then at the same time, around the end of the 50s, going into the early 60s, uh,
You got me thinking of the song that it reminded me of. So I'm trying to find the name so I can ask
okay,
while you're still here so I don't forget. But
um, the term bebop had emerged, and
mhm.
the jazz went from being a pop style, I guess, of jazz, then to a more like intellectual, musically like introspective art form.
Right.
Um, People were still very much into it and respectful of it, but it changed what it was. Like bebop was very different from um, the popular like big band and swing,
Mhm.
uh,
Like Ella
art,
Fitzgerald versus Billie Holiday. Well,
or
no, that's
or
even
or
earlier.
or like Duke Ellington
Yeah.
versus John Coltrane.
Oh, I love John Coltrane.
Yeah,
And I
John.
can't think of the flute player, but that's why I wanted to play flute because my dad loved listening to the flute player that played with John Coltrane a lot. Can't think of that name. I'm so bad with names. That's
I don't remember. That's a
because a
good.
lot of times you just listen to it on a playlist and you don't you don't know who's playing anymore. Like back in the day when it was just radio and they would announce,
Man, I tell you,
you know, or you're watching music videos. But now it's like everything
so
just kind of blurs together.
I learned
Yeah.
so much from WNCU.
I worked at WNCU for a little bit.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
who were some of the hosts?
I went to 6 different colleges, I should mention, and 26 different schools. Everybody's name just blends together now.
I think he had dreadlocks, older gray.
You're not talking about Larry
Yes.
Thompson? Oh, I moderated with him because he talks about, reparations and Wilmington on fire.
So
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Larry Thomas.
yes, so I learned a lot from listening to his show.
Okay.
Before I got to Central, I didn't know what straight ahead jazz was. Like the jazz that was in the house at the time was like George Du, more like smooth jazz artists. There's like Gerald Albright, uh, Bob James, Foreplay, George Duke. I mean, there was like Ahmad Jamal and Miles Davis, but I just, because I heard them taking solos and improvising,
Mhm.
I didn't realize what they were doing was, as smooth jazz artists, an incarnation of jazz, but it wasn't traditional straight ahead jazz. So when I got to Central, I was introduced to straight ahead jazz really for the first time. It was like a mind. It was all like almost like the. It was baffling to figure out how much I didn't know
Yeah.
about music, and that like Central for me was that was like a big takeaway from, yeah, Joe Sample was in the house a lot.
Mhm.
um um who else was in there? Norman Brown, which was kind of ironic because I ended up playing with him. Alex Bunyan, I ended up playing with him. Um, Phil Perry, I ended up playing with him. He was in the house a lot. Music, in terms of like the CDs that we would listen to.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Anita Baker.
Right.
I didn't get the chance.
Sade, I'm sure.
Uh,
Oh, what was it? Sweet Valley, Sweet Music. You remember them? Sweet Valley, Sweet Music.
Sweetback was a
Sweetback. That's it. That was another one I would listen to a lot.
Sunday's band. Yep.
Yeah, they were really good.
So my experience was jazz, and I
Oh, and
wasn't
turn
listening
your
to.
mic back up
Huh?
because you
Oh,
had turned it down for the drums.
yeah. Sorry.
I kept turning my volume up and was like moving in closer than your
Sorry.
dad would. I was like, oh yeah, I could just see
Um,
it.
yeah, I was listening to New York. The jazz, smooth jazz station was CD 101.9, and then we had a smooth jazz station that shut down while I was living in North Carolina. That I used to listen to, and I can't remember.
88.7 or
Huh?
88.7? I don't know.
No, that
Spotify now.
was the actual straight ahead. Like, yeah, there was WNCU, and then there was Shaw, and then there was this smooth jazz station that we had. Um,
Mm.
and then, for me, like middle school and high school, like I would always listen to like the slow jam stations at night. So I was like super.
107?
Yeah, and that was it 97.5
Yeah,
too.
that's still here. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's just all hip hop. I don't know if it. I mean, I only would listen to
now,
it in carpool when my kid
but
was out of the car. But
I'm
yeah,
talking like 90, 91, 92, 93. So I was hearing like,
then
ooh, like Mint Condition when they first really hit the scene. I was hearing, like
Jodeci,
Jodeci,
Teddy
uh,
Iajhi, and all of that. The
yeah,
new
Layla,
thing.
um, and that was like a nightly routine, for me to listen
Yeah.
to a lot of these like Babyface.
And that was complete opposite.
Yeah,
My dad worked a lot of gangster movies and hip hop movies, like Who's the Man and Lean on Me, New Jack City. So I listened to. He would have nothing but jazz and like Stevie Wonder and all of
mhm,
that. Like I love Diana Ross. Like I always listen to Diana Ross, and of course Prince and Michael Jackson and
mhm,
Mary Jane Girls and Time. But when it was like my choice, it was always anything on Yo MTV Raps, just like complete opposite. Because I went to like private schools, and I was always the
right,
one or very few of. So it was like just my way of being able to identify with my culture, but also from living and working in New York and different places. It just
mhm.
like it was. I don't know. Felt comfortable then, and I liked West Coast rap a lot too. So like Snoop Dogg, and they use like more live music with their stuff too, with Digital
Oh, yeah.
Underground
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of
Dr.
them.
Dre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, Tupac and Yo Yo, of course, because I had her on my show.
Right. It's so funny. So
Yeah,
for me, it was like Tribe Called Quest
yeah,
and like
yeah, me
uh
too. Far Side,
Far Side, Leaders of the New School, um
Digital Underground.
Digital. Well, yeah, yeah.
I didn't.
Even though they were
They were the
from
one
the West
that did
Coast.
Tennessee, right? Because I don't think I liked it. I hated that Tennessee song, whatever that. I don't
I
know.
was into them too. But they had another one.
Oh, that song drove me nuts.
Uh, 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 say yo, everyday people.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was my jam back then. Like West Coast for me was very detached, but like the stuff that was like super super popular, like I knew, but then like it was like really like Redman and Method Man and
Yeah.
you
Uh,
know um
That was one of the first rap concerts I went to was Redman, Method Man, and Jay-Z together.
wow,
That
yeah,
was one of the
Jay.
first other than, like, fake, rap concerts that they did it, like, on, Who's the Man, um, OPP. Where remember OPP? Yeah, you know
I
me.
know.
They did, like, a fake concert, so technically they were my first, but they weren't really performing, it was just for the movie, you know?
I got to hang out with them too. Ironically,
Did you
with
watch, by the way, DMX versus Snoop Dogg last night? That was live on Versus.
no, I saw
I
it
screen
today.
recorded it.
You said what?
I screen recorded it. I
Wow.
wanted to be able to watch it again. I got
Yeah,
no work done while listening to it. It was so good.
and they keep them all on that on their Instagram page. You get to go back. You can go back and like watch them all on their Instagram page. Yeah, there's so many of them that I want to go back and watch. Like I didn't get to see Erica and Jill Scott. I heard that one was like really really great.
It was like a love fest for each other too, which was nice. And that was the same with last night, where it was a lot of respect and fun old stories and so on. It was I
Exactly.
love that. I didn't
Naughty by Nature. Somebody just
yeah,
pointed out.
that's
Yeah. So
so
Tretch and so there's an artist named Everlast
yeah, I
who
remember Everlast.
right. So he was in House of Pain, and their big hit was Jump Around. So I toured with him last year. We did the summer of 2019 together, and we headlined and Naughty by Nature opened for us, which I thought was the weirdest thing, right? But we were at this we were in there's a this national bike rally called Sturgis, and Sturgis is a city in North Dakota. It's close to where the presidential monument is.
Oh, okay.
And
The one that
the
everybody's mad at right now, Mount
right,
Rushmore.
right.
I was
Um,
like, the no
so
name.
it's a huge attended uh motorcycle rally, but it's a music festival too. So like I think the next night like Snoop was there performing, and then they have like country artists and this whole thing. So there was they were performing Hip Hop Hooray, and we're standing there watching on the side. They're like, man, come up here, man, come up here. So they're doing the lyrics. Well, hey, ho.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I got the keyboard player who was actually responsible for me uh, working with Everlast. He took video of it, and so I have a copy of us hanging out with Naughty by Nature on stage. It was a
Oh, that's pretty dope.
pretty cool moment. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Like
thank
there's so many
you.
good memories that I didn't get a chance to touch, but I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely if there's time and space, we can do another one again, and I can be a little more poignant and organized in the thought in terms of the talking about like the I guess the order of my career.
Oh, no, I thought about it. It's like it doesn't really matter because most people won't have both musical parents you've worked with, with Luther Vandross, and like you're not going to have that same beginning. So I was like, let's just go ahead. Like, there's no point because I mean that's like me trying to tell people how I got started. Like, it's not traditional by any means. Like, I couldn't even suggest my way because I went about it very all over the place, and I wasn't really interested at all times at being in front of the camera because of the fear of playing into those stereotypes. Or I had for a long time, because I grew up overseas, I had a German accent that was very strong. And like the first film I really worked in, they ended up dubbing over me because I didn't sound like I was from New York.
Oh wow!
But Forrest Whitaker, I auditioned for him, and he
Wow!
wanted me for the part. But in post, they had me. They had somebody else talking for me, which is really funny because my mouth's not even moving. But so that's funny for me anyway. But needless to say, so I kind of was like, I gotta find other ways. So I did modeling because I was like, oh, it doesn't matter how you sound then. And
Man, and then what are the like that's modeling in itself sounds like it comes with its own kind of like pressures and
I've been on a diet since I was 15.
emotional strains of like what you get and what you don't get, and what you get
Yeah.
called for and what you're a part of, and or even like I can only assume that modeling kind of has like its own similar like casting couch
No,
phenomenon.
I was lucky with that side of it because I always did like commercial, not so much editorial, because I think editorial that would be more of an issue, but commercial, it's very girl next door. You're selling a product, you're sitting in furniture, they want you to be very comfortable, like you're at home.
Mhm.
I did like some hair shows and different things like that where I would have to walk in things I would never wear in public in real life that were more maybe more see there now I can't talk correctly, provocative. But it was still like it wasn't on film, so I didn't feel, because my parents are always very, because of where they were in their careers, they always were just very careful about the fact, like, be aware of your that you're not just representing yourself, you represent us too, and don't do anything that could end up like, if you saw it in the newspapers, how would you feel if everybody knew what you were doing? Like, they just always, in a good way, played mind games with me in a way where it was just like my morals were never for sale type of thing. So like anytime there was a part, I was like, it's not worth it. Like I always knew, even from I guess going the ups and downs with having a lot of money sometimes and not having that much, that I kind of was like, it's not worth the money to do anything that you feel bad about later or wouldn't want people to portray that image with you. I remember a girlfriend asking me if, so you're telling me for $1 million you wouldn't want to be the face for a herpes medication? I was like, yeah, for $1 million. Like, nope. Hemorrhoids too. Nope. You know, like now, like looking back, like now that I have a kid in college, it's like, huh, now maybe, you know, like maybe that's not so bad. Well, no, probably still not. But you know, there's just you gotta have some things that you're just like, no matter what, it's not worth it type of thing with modeling. And so you go in there already knowing that it's not worth it for you, that, you know, get a girl that's willing to do it, because I'll be trouble, you know, or,
I mean,
but
you know, there's a lot of touring things that are similar to that because like not everybody is doing not everybody's traveling the same way. You know, some artists, and it depends on the budget and what's available, but some artists do like a traditional tour bus tour. Some artists will take a weekend and fly, or I've seen artists do a month where you're flying the whole time. Some artists grab like sprinter vans.
right,
Um,
right.
some
Okay.
artists
No.
some artists grab, you know, regular 15 passenger vans because that's the budget that's available to them. But then, you know, there's this, the way you travel affects how you perform. And there's this whole idea of like performance practice. And the older you get, you know, it's hard to try to travel, you know, in a van and not get like real rest. You know, your body fatigues from that. Your body fatigues from, you know, a month of flying. I think I did a run with Macy Gray. It's like 35 days in between the Middle East and Asia. And every 2 days we flew. And
The time zones,
yeah,
culture.
we started in Istanbul. We did two
I lived
nights
in
there.
Ankara.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I love
then we went,
Istanbul.
huh?
I was just saying I love Istanbul, like, they have all
So
those bazaars and the food.
oh man, and just being on the water and
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then we went from there to Tel Aviv, and that was a
Okay.
flight. We went from Tel Aviv to Dubai. We were only in Dubai for maybe about 12 hours, and then
Oh,
we went from Dubai to Okinawa and stopped in. We had a layover in Tokyo and went to Okinawa, and then we came back to the
they
mainland.
shouldn't give these artists such a hard time when they're like, "Hello, hello, Ohio, you're in Jamaica." Well, maybe
Yeah,
not Jamaica,
I mean,
but, you know.
you know, but no,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally. I mean, and it was weird. And then we did like a week in Tokyo, and then the second week we were like driving to other like cities and then
Mhm.
coming back to Tokyo, and then we went from there to Taiwan and then came home. But we really didn't have any like technical days off. So like there were days that we didn't perform, but we weren't performing because we were flying. So we weren't given days to
Just
rest our bodies per se, like as a day off. Like we flew into Tokyo and we had that day off. We got in the afternoon and you know we were able to kind of relax that evening, but we had to play a show the next day, you know, so you didn't get a day to recoup, and it was like 35 days of that. And
mm,
like you gotta, you know, you gotta find a balance, you know,
same
and with
energy
your
too every
performance,
night.
and within the performance practice, it's a very athletic thing in terms of like, your muscles and whatnot. And so like you gotta, your hydration is important, your stretching,
Gotta have
your
your tea. Just kidding.
yeah, your vitamin B intake, your banana intake, your water intake, the food choices, like if you decide to eat fast food every day, it's gonna catch up with you, at some point
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a traveling. But then, if you're in a van traveling in North America, a lot of times, what they give you to eat is pizza and burgers,
mm,
or like when you pull over to stop and eat, your options, sometimes aren't really that great. It's like
yeah,
Burger King or Subway or
yeah.
so it's a very
Yeah, my parents were vegetarian.
that's a California thing. That's a very
Mm.
California thing. Did
Well,
you
he was
grow up?
from Philly.
Huh?
He was from Philly. It was part of being in SNCC and Freedom Riders and just like having this whole thing about food being poison and just wanting to be healthier. That was
Mm,
my dad's thing, and it extended to all of us from that point. But like,
mm, mm.
yeah.
Do you
So
still practice a little bit of?
as soon as I went to college, I was done. Like ordered pizza with pepperoni and got super sick because I started at Meredith and I don't know, I think Hungry, whatever, it was like a Gumby looking guy, but it was called Hungry's or something, which is really weird because in LA there is a Gumby's, but it was like Gumby's Pizza or something, green cartoon character. I don't know
I
if you
know
remember.
exactly
Like,
what you're talking about. It's on the corner
yeah,
of
it's like
Glenwood and
$5. Yeah, it was near Hungry Howie's Subs or something right there on
yeah,
Hillsborough Street. I
yeah,
would
yeah.
order
I live in
that
Hillsborough.
every 3rd day, maybe?
Oh, I
Um,
used to kill that
yeah,
spot.
yeah, yeah, it was the best. It was, "Wait, this is better than, the cafeteria food, and it's only $5 for a whole pizza." Like, we could take turns buying it with my roommate and I, and
Right.
so well, not that we ever did, but, yeah, so, yeah, that was the end of that. I'm kind of a pescatarian now. Well, not anymore because of the pandemic. I'll eat whatever I can get, but I was a pescatarian during the week, and then on the weekends were my cheat days to eat
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, mm-mm. I couldn't wait because with your parents traveling a lot. I don't know if the same for you, but sometimes I would live with my grandmother or stay at someone's house that
Hmm.
ate meat, and I wouldn't tell them I couldn't eat meat, like
Right. Yeah.
so I'd had meat, and even it's funny, one time my grandmother was really proud of herself that she had made all these vegetarian stuff for my dad to eat and stuff, and he was just like, "Wow, this is the best tasting collard greens I ever had, and yeah, this is so good. What did you make it? I want to be able to do this at home." And she was like, "Yeah, put this ham hock or what? I don't know. I'm saying ham hock, but I don't know what it was. But it was like
Probably.
bone and some different things." He was like, like real quick, like, no, seasoning is still meat, Like, but I mean, he wasn't angry like that, but it was really funny. He's a really good sport because one year for Father's Day, I wanted to surprise him with breakfast in bed and made an omelet. I guess we weren't complete like today's terms of vegetarian since he ate eggs then, but every vegetable that was in our fridge, I threw in the omelet. So lettuce, tomato, potatoes, celery, carrots. Didn't
Oh,
pre-cook any of those. Like I had no idea because my
wow.
mom was the cook in the house and I didn't cook at all. I still shouldn't touch the kitchen, period. But here we are, pandemic. So, and he ate the whole thing. Like and I
Wow.
have a Polaroid picture of that omelet. So I see, I mean, not like so when I like later on in life when I learned more about cooking and it was like, wow, that's love. Like that's unconditional love right
Right.
there. There's no way. I would have probably hurt my daughter's feelings really quickly. Like, I'm not eating that. Like,
Right.
yes, and I love my daughter tremendously. So it's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of
No,
respect for him.
things you do. I mean, yeah, for the love of your kids. I mean, yeah, I tried to make my mom coffee one morning and she
Yeah,
had like this old school percolator and
I have no idea what that is. I
so
thought it was just
like
a dance.
you know how you have like your regular coffee maker?
Uh,
and
yeah. Okay.
you put the water in the top, and it drips down, and you have like this basket.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the percolator you put on the stove, and
Ah,
it's a basket, but it has its own filter in it, and you put the coffee in there. What I didn't know was that you're supposed to put water in it. I didn't know how coffee was made. I was like too young at the time. Like I was probably like 10 or 11, and I'm
yeah.
trying to make coffee for my mom and surprise her one morning, and I almost burnt the house down because there was no water in the percolator. And she's just like smelling
Oh,
this
yeah.
percolator burning. Yeah, no, I've had some of those moments for sure.
Oh, I
So
see
it's
your dog. Is that your
yeah,
dog?
huh?
No. I thought I saw a dog underneath your arm, but no, it's just it looked like something was moving. Oh, it's your pocket. Never mind. I was like,
Oh
oh,
wow.
there's a
Oh,
dog.
okay.
Never mind. Yeah, I guess we're getting buffered, and that should be my sign because it's 7:36, or I guess I don't make me do math. 4:36 your time.
4:30.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate so much going down this memory memory lane a little bit with how we poisoned our family. Or at least I did. You just tried to burn the house down, fire started. I did that too. But anyway. So I really appreciate this time. And it was so nice to talk to a fellow eagle that is soaring all over the place in Los Angeles. And
Absolutely. And there's a couple of us that came out of North Carolina Central that if you do get a chance, my younger brother Reverend Hampden, he also was a North
my mom
Carolina.
got married at your church.
Huh?
My mom just posted that she got married at Bethel AME Church in Greensboro.
Wow. Wow.
They didn't
Yeah.
stay married, but she got married there. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's I spent
They probably had
much
great
time
music
over there.
there.
So did my younger brother and my older brother.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, yeah.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
They both play drum set and percussion.
Yeah, I know about your brother. I'm sorry, I didn't know about my mom being married at
Right.
AME
Well, no,
Church.
it's all good.
Yeah,
It's
I
all good.
thought they eloped, so I was like, "Oh, a real church." Learning new
Yeah,
information every day.
there's do you know about the Art of Cool festival?
Yeah, I actually worked the Art of Cool this past year with
So
Run DMC, and it was
wow,
and
so,
Big Daddy Kane, who I'd seen like 8
wow.
times probably because he opened for KRS-One every once in a while at Cat's Cradle.
Hmm. Hmm. The
I would go like,
original founder
mm,
of Art of Cool is a Central grad. His name is Albert Strong. Uh,
okay.
he's still he's around and definitely like has a lot of useful information. And then there's another drummer that came out of Central, Jeremy Bean Clemens. And these are people we were all there at the same time.
Yeah. Are you in the Eagles in LA Facebook group or something like
It's
that?
you know what, the algorithm kind of cycle. I got in it in like 2008 or 9
Okay.
initially, and um, yeah, there's an actress out here that I went to school with named Simone, who is like
Yeah, she was my receptionist when I worked at Kate Somerville's. Yeah.
wow. So
We were in acting classes together at Central.
so there was like a crew. So I have a buddy out here named Kaz
Okay.
Masood, and he was in the theater program at the time, and then him and I went to high school together, but him and Simone and the theater people had like a thing, and like that was all connected to like the cafeteria. Like the football players sat in one section of the cafeteria, and then like the
Yeah.
marching band sat in one section, and then like the jazz people and the theater people all sat in one section. So there was like this crew
Yeah.
of us, and I know I'm missing a couple of names, and then some of the communications people, Truett O'Neill. Um, we were all kind of in like this circle at Central, and then like yeah, Simone took off, and she's like got this acting career. I don't know if they're married, but with her guy, like her
Yeah.
husband or
They were
boyfriend.
doing like broccoli something when I
Well, and
last
that's
time.
Broccoli City, right?
Oh, okay. I remember they were like doing shirts. This is MySpace days. So we were just like,
Right.
I remember her telling me about it, and I remember it just sticking in my head because it was like, oh, it like brought back vegetarian memories of broccoli
Right.
being in
Yes.
every meal almost. So I was like, oh, I
And
don't think
then
I want a shirt that has broccoli on it.
they had a great festival.
Skits and stuff. Yeah.
They still have a
Oh,
nonprofit cause. The Broccoli City is still going.
oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah. I mean, and granted, like everything is kind of on hold with COVID,
Yeah.
and I think it's looking like 2022 before, you know, we will be able to travel
Yeah.
internationally again, and festivals will start to happen. And for me, like, I remember the day I realized it was everything was going to be on hold was day when they announced the shutdown of the NBA.
Okay.
When that
Well,
information
I mean, that
came out,
guy was like touching all the mics, like you're like, oh, and then he tested positive. I was like,
yeah, NBA, and then
yeah,
what was
yeah,
it, NCAA tournament? Like when those
NCAA.
two things went down, I was
It
like,
was a
we
wrap.
are in for the long haul, and I
Mhm.
kind of knew, and I
But
mean,
they're
people are
coming back this
trying.
week, right? I think NBA started back this week.
I saw Major League
Like
Baseball.
scrimmage. Their NBA starting back
Okay,
scrimmages this week.
and honestly, it's I don't know how far down you want to roll down this, but I think it's very much so too
I ain't
soon.
got nothing else to do.
I think it's causing for a distraction leading up to this next election. Um,
Mm, I would agree.
and it's causing for like the the pattern of the depletion of the virus to be extended, to the point where like it could interrupt uh, the the polling stations from being open, you know, among like other things. So it's kind of like I know that like music and entertainment, they want to get back to doing what they were doing, and then people want to be entertained, but the
Or pacified even,
past,
you know?
but it's lengthening the curve that everybody is talking about. And so, you know like when you look at like these concert promoters and like the drive-in thing, okay, I think there's
That
there,
could be a
there's some
takeaway.
good to that in terms of it being a gathering, but people not, it's open air. But like Coachella and arena concerts and a lot of those things,
Or
like
even
they
smaller
need,
venues.
yeah, they need to wait, at least till like the fall of 2021, which by the time you get there, you're already in 2022, Um, but it's there's so much going on with the this election year that's distracting from being able to put music, back on the forefront, that people are kind of doing it anyway, and it's not really, it's not helping the curve flatten out,
Mhm.
and it really, it's unfortunate because I would love to go out and perform too, but I don't, I
I would
think,
love to go on a set, yeah, but
yeah,
none of the
like,
risk of my kid or my own health, no. I'm good.
yeah, I have a couple of friends here who, were getting ready to go on tour, and there were big companies like Live Nation and like AEG who were the promoters of those tours. And right now, they're dealing with the international travel bans from the other countries who probably aren't going to let up until 2002. So you can't, you know, promote out of country like concerts,
Yeah.
which
Well, I
which
mean, our passports are useless there anyway. They're not letting a lot of American passports into their country because we haven't controlled the curve on this side. But even
exactly.
thinking here, I don't know if you heard since you have North Carolina roots, but like the last tour that performed here, somebody was COVID positive at that. And the Millennium Tour is like March 13th, I think. The day before Billie Eilish performed, there was no problem. But
Mm,
the next day, and you're like, how many people, all the people that are working, cleaning the place, the crew people, the band, and
mm,
just all the people working the concession stands, and it's a lot of times it's non for profits that are working the concession stands here, at least where it might be to raise money for a school band or whatever it
mm.
may be that's working there. So they're bringing it to schools, and like I'm not letting my kid go back to
That's the
school,
thing
and
too.
for the
Like if
same reason because
if
it's too
if
many
September,
moving parts.
yeah, if September comes around and like the universities and the public school systems go back in nationally, like it's gonna extend it even further. It's a very, and then on the backside of that, from a financial standpoint, right now this week, we're waiting for Mitch McConnell and the Republican side of the Senate to pass this new phase of financial support to the public in the HEROES Act. And if they don't do it, people are going to be forced to go back to work, which is going to increase the length
Well,
of this curve.
even
So it's a very interesting time
yeah,
right
'cause even, like, the extension for, being able to have to, like, not being able to get kicked out of your house, I can't think of what it's called, but
the eviction protection thing.
eviction protection, like, I think it's getting ready to, not retire, but expire as well, so it's
Well,
so
so that's getting ready to expire. The
Mhm.
the the government $600 supplement
Employment.
for unemployment is getting ready to expire at the end of next week on the 31st.
Mm.
And then the there is supposed to be a second stimulus that hasn't been voted on yet that people may or may not get at the beginning of August, which is going to gravely affect the not only the coronavirus but the state of this country as it relates to people having to fight to find places to live and to feed themselves,
Mhm.
you know
Or even
separate
daycare.
from all of
Yeah,
this protesting, you know what I
yeah.
mean, which is
Or
and
people
and
going to
so
the
it's
beach. Yeah.
yeah, people are protesting mass. George Floyd is still being protested. Now there are
Breonna
these,
Taylor, yeah.
these secret police
Oh,
that
right, and up in Oregon,
and
and now Chicago. It's
they're
just
trying to take him to
going
Chicago. Yeah, they're threatening to take him to Chicago. And like if you look at it long term, like they could threaten to take them to the polling stations in November to keep people
get
from
your absentee
voting.
ballot. Like,
You
go
know,
ahead
and
and ask for it.
and
Yeah.
how are you really trusting voting by mail at this point? It's a lot of and so I guess for me, like at some point in over so many years of doing music, like you transition from like a musician being like who you are
Mhm,
to a musician being like what you do, and you
mhm.
like start to pay attention to how these other domestic and political things relate to like what's going on. Because I didn't pay attention to politics. I was too well, from I don't know, college on to like probably till Obama got elected. Really, like I didn't really feel like I was a part of that grid. Like I was just kind of
Always in it.
studying music and trying to
Yeah.
get better, and it kind of like dealing with like policies and all those things kind of like happened for me like in the last recent like 5 years, and
Right.
this it's like yeah, everybody's watching the news at this point. And I
Yeah.
mean, granted, there's a point where like you don't want to be feared by it, and I think that's why I wasn't watching it before,
Mhm.
but like as it relates to like the reality of things that are going on, like if I know I have to plan not to rely on live performance as an income for the next year, it's like, and I know based on all the information that's being spread out, like it allows me to prepare myself mentally to make these other sources of income happen,
Mhm.
teaching lessons remotely,
Mhm.
recording remotely for
Yeah.
people, and keeping up with what options I may have as my own small business, whether it be like a
There's a lot of grants out
PPP,
there as
yeah,
well.
the grants, PPP loans.
But that's also the importance of voting. I wanna make sure we bring up on a local level, the
Absolutely.
difference of having a governor who understands science and that's taking the precautions. You can
Absolutely.
tell the difference, like, they're
Absolutely.
making sure that they're protecting their students, they're protecting their
Absolutely.
workers.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm hoping that a lot of people are noticing that and wanna make sure that they pay attention to also with Breonna Taylor, murderer still being free, who
Mhm.
their district attorney is, who their judges are, who's
Yep.
their sheriffs, like, there's so many different
Yep.
parts of,
It's so
that you have to
important.
vote for. Yeah, and since my dad was a member of SNCC, like for a very young age, voting was our voice. That was a way to make change happen and to
Hmm.
see to be able to have somewhat of a even playing field to make sure redlining and all the other things were.
Exactly.
'Cause
Exactly.
we always lived kind of on the other side, where we weren't supposed to live. So we were able to kind of be the voice for Black people and make sure that we were involved in the community. And like my uncle ran for school board, so he was on the school board here for Orange County, and then my aunt's a judge, and actually my cousin, she's also in the legal field, and her dad also is a judge. So we were always very much involved. Like I have pictures of the first time I went voting. So we were a little nerdy on that side, but I appreciate that fact, and I want to make sure that since
Right.
it's brought up how important it is
But
to get involved.
you brought it up earlier. My mother was a part of the civil rights movement and
Okay. Yeah, being in
desegregated
Greenville.
High Point high schools. But she later on became an entertainment lawyer, an entertainment attorney, and just recently retired from Seton Hall Law School in New Jersey, where she taught like entertainment and copyright law. But a lot of her experiences, you know, came from like a lot of the civil rights movement and
I would
um,
love to have her on.
absolutely no,
I'm
her,
having an
her,
attorney on Monday, so an entertainment attorney. So I would love to hear from someone that teaches and just have seen it from the perspective of being an artist
she
and being an attorney.
yeah, she has a ton of stories. So my parents uh met in at Dance Theater of Harlem in New York. It's a dance company, and
Okay.
they were touring together. My dad was in the pit as a percussionist, and my mom was the musical director for it. And
She
that
was
was
dating
how
the boss. I like that.
I
She was the boss for once.
yeah, no, absolutely. And he has like an array of stories from working with like Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds to being, she went to Howard when uh, Donny Hathaway was there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
oh, and she's on the board for the Nicole. She's on the board for BESLA. It's the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Convention. But
Yeah,
she
I wanna talk I
she
wanna
was
talk.
also like the chair of my music department at Central at a time. She she
Oh,
taught at Central's law school.
okay.
She
And now it's
was
like one of the top law schools for women in the world, in not in the
yeah,
world, but the
yeah.
nation.
She was the staff piano player at every school I went to. Like me and my younger brother, like she would come in and play piano for the school chorus, play
Oh,
piano for like their theater productions. And then we played in church like every single Sunday. And um, and yeah, I mean she has a lot of very, very good stories to tell. She's
yeah.
Floyd McKissick, who's um, and also an attorney, but was very prominent in North Carolina.
Yeah,
And
they're working on doing a documentary about him. I just got the deck for it from
right,
Brett Chambers. I'm sure he
yes,
sent it to you
yes.
too.
So Floyd and
Yeah,
my
I
mom,
met his son because he's in the General Assembly.
right, right.
Yeah.
So they
Mhm.
all they all like my mom was.
I'm a political nerd, so
Oh, who's the gentleman that just passed away?
Joe Lewis?
It's John
John
Lewis.
Lewis. Joe Lewis. All right.
Yeah, so
John
she was
he was
doing
the chair of SNCC.
a lot of the same things that John Lewis was doing at that time, and
Okay.
left like this is high school for her, and then left there to go to Howard. She met Donny Hathaway. She met Richard Smallwood. She did undergrad and grad in music at Howard. Then she went and got her doctorate out here at Stanford, out in Palo Alto, uh,
Okay.
in music, and then came back and started teaching music between DC and New York. No, she was teaching in New York while she was in grad school at Howard. It was crazy, and
Wow. That's one heck of a track.
yeah, and then I think while she was at Howard, Donald Byrd was there, and that was how she got into like the Blackbirds band. And then after that, she after her teaching stint in New York public schools, she did dance theater, and after dance theater, went to law school. Um, yeah, and then ultimately got hired after she graduated from Seton Hall. But she has a lot of good stories to tell.
All of- yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. Brenda Saunders Hampden.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I'll get
yeah,
the information from you afterwards.
yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Um,
check with your mom first, because my mom doesn't.
well,
My dad hates. Yeah, I can't put him on the spot at all. You're like, nope.
she's still actively teaching. She founded a program called the short version of it is called pre-legal, but it's called the Summer Institute for Pre-Legal Studies, and it's for minorities who are in undergrad or who are in undergrad who are interested in becoming attorneys or going to law school. And so um, it's there's a lot of funding and grants, but she founded it and is one of the head administrators for the program still, even though she's retired from Seton Hall. So right now, right this second, um, she may or may not have the time in between, because they're doing everything remote too. So it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah. Well, I have
weird.
time, so
Well,
I can
yeah,
wait.
but every time I call her, she's like, "Yeah, I got a Zoom in about 36 minutes with the."
Oh, that's like my dad. He's doing so many Zooms now. I'm like, or he'll
Mhm.
have it on while he's talking to me, and I'm like, I can. Are you? Do you need to go? He's like, oh no, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
but she
yeah,
she yeah, she could find the. I'm sure she would be interested in doing it, and like I'm sure you would find like some very interesting like connections between, like I said, she was in High Point, going to high school, and then her mother, my grandmother, settled in Greensboro, which is how we ended up at Bethel AME.
okay,
Um, and so we were in Greensboro every Sunday, but we lived in Durham when we relocated from New Jersey.
okay.
Uh,
I lived in Jersey too. Yeah.
yeah, we lived in Irvington.
Okay.
Um,
I
and
lived
so
everywhere, so that's not saying
so
much.
she was there, and then when we got to North Carolina, she kept her position at Seton Hall, and so she was
Mm.
commuting back and forth and did that for about 30 years or so, while
Mom
still
is a
actively
hustler.
playing piano. She was a board of
Mhm.
directors for the Brightleaf Music Workshop for a long
Okay.
time.
Here in Durham, I know Brightleaf Music. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not music, but
Yep,
Brightleaf Square.
Brightleaf Square. Yep,
Okay.
for a long time they had a big summer program that was held over at Duke. She had a great relationship with the director of the theater department back in at Central, Dr. Norflet, who was the dean of arts and sciences, I want to say. And so she was one of
I
the
was a
go-to.
sociology major, funny
Uh,
enough.
she was one of the go-tos for the bands that were being selected uh, in the theater department at that time.
Okay.
From 95 to 2002, I want to say, which was actually my introduction to Central. So I played
Yeah.
in my first theater production at Central my senior year in high school.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. So that was
That's the
like
year I graduated, but we're not gonna go into that.
playing with like professional musicians in the Durham community. It was yeah, but it's
Freelon, I
crazy.
think you remember. Yeah.
It was just another. I had gotten the theater vocabulary. It's like its own vocabulary. It's very much driven by like being able to read music and being
Mhm.
able to follow cues almost as like a TV show band. So it was just this other vocabulary. Like you got to wait for this line to happen in order for the musical director to cue you that that's when we're starting this song. you
Okay.
know
Wow.
and you have to follow like the actors movements. There
Mhm.
may be like hits involved, but like yeah, she'll have a lot to say, and it has a very very rich, like I definitely joke with people like my parents were kind of like the Cosbys growing up. It's very interesting. Like I just didn't my experience was just very, very different in terms of like how they strive for excellence, in so many different fields, you know what I mean? And even understanding like what was open and available to me, like my dad, even though like the drumming thing was such a big thing, he signed a production deal with Polygram Records as a songwriter. So at
Mm-hmm.
10, 11 years old, I was being introduced to like what having like a production studio was at your home, and like being able to understand the software and how to run the software, how to run like there's like a program called Pro Tools that wasn't out back then, but it's a very famous program software that people record in. But like learning how to use that, learning how to use a drum machine,
Yeah.
learning how to use a mixing board, for the studio. Like I got to see that and see him as a songwriter. And at that time, I didn't know drummers could do that. Like I didn't know that that was allowed. Like that a drummer could write songs.
But
So
it makes so much sense since you guys kind of steady the beat, or like you're kind of the ones
man,
that are
so
moving the
Teddy
song
Pendergrass was a drummer.
along. Mhm.
Timberland was a drummer.
Okay.
Of course, Anderson Paak is a drummer.
Right.
There's a lot of like famous like big name songwriters that like played drums,
Yeah.
coming up. And I learned it like later on. Stokely from Mint Condition, he's a drummer.
Mm.
There's a lot of them. And just being so enamored by the idea of drums and being just like a good drummer and looking up to all these drummers. Like it wasn't until later that it was like they're so good because um, they understand music from like a harmonic sense. It's not
Mhm.
just drums. Not like I'm just gonna be the best drummer. I'm just gonna do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
um, so to see my dad, like I always saw my mom write, from the piano, it was like, okay, like, and I didn't appreciate it at the time
And even
because
in movies, that's what they always show a lot of times, that they're writing while they're playing the piano type of thing too.
yeah, like the Five Heartbeats kind of Robert Townsend thing, like that was kind of, but like even, for me, like, it's been such a big part of my life. Like jazz was where I learned how to understand composition, but then my love for all of styles is where I started to become like a writer. And I actually meant to tell you, I have a catalog of music that you can use for your advertising as well if you ever want to.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw you shouting out
Oh,
the
yeah,
right at the beginning.
yeah, with Breed Beats, he does my intro music, and he's like a unsigned small artist in Virginia, and so it's just my way to kinda help build popularity for him and to get
No,
him more Spotify
absolutely.
plays and so on, so I
And and there's a weird thing with North Carolina that like I
Mhm.
feel like there's so many talented people that don't get recognized that need more recognition on a local level. Like I
We
felt.
don't really communicate, like, I don't know how hard it is to break in because I've lived here for years, and I feel like I don't know anyone. I mean,
Mhm,
now I do because I've been
mhm.
doing the show and I started meeting people that way, but, like, it's like everybody doesn't wanna tell anybody what they're doing, or even like myself, I didn't tell people that I was from a film family because then they're like, "Well," they were expecting too much from me out of that. So, like, I told
Mhm.
people my dad was a Bible salesman. Kinda like, we travel around, he's gotta sell these, because it was like nobody really wanted to talk about that. Like, I would try different things, more normal job names, and since I had to carry a pager with me at a very young age so they could let me know who was picking me up from school or
Mhm.
whatever, if it was my last day at school or whatever, because dad did get the job, we need to start packing up, whatever, when you get home type of thing, so I could be prepared, whatever, like, empty out my locker, certain stuff,
Right.
but 'cause
I will
that,
say they support the arts really
Mhm.
good in North Carolina. Um, um,
So you
but
tell
I think
maybe it's not the black side of the arts then, because maybe,
I
or
think
the film side.
I think Hayti has been a good
Mm-hmm.
support of the black side of the
Right,
arts.
absolutely.
I think the Arts Council, Durham to me is a very
Who you know,
like
maybe.
a
Yeah.
very black city,
Yeah.
in no apologetic sense of the word. Like, there's black banks, there was a black Wall Street, there was a very
Right.
similarities to what was going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma, around that time. And I think even the gentrification that has happened in Durham has still surrounded black finances,
Mhm.
so in terms of I think there's an awareness of like support for black art, sculptures,
I'm
color.
literally a black artist's daughter.
Hmm. Hmm. um,
I,
um,
there's,
uh,
I think it was more so in the well, I don't know. Like it's been different. I don't. It's like a lot of lip service, but not necessarily like I don't know. I feel a lot of tokenism with it, where they'll say it, they want not saying within the Hayti or anything like that, but I'm saying like government wise, they'll say, "Oh, we want to include my more people, black, indigenous, people of color," and then they don't. They keep hiring the same or like giving grants to others that aren't to represent us, which is
mm.
kind of weird.
well
But
and
maybe
then
it's
and then
on the Wake County side as opposed to Durham.
well and then you have to factor in the relationships with a lot of the national and international businesses that Durham has. I think IBM has a good pipeline to Central. I think GlaxoSmithKline has a good, because Central's biology department is
Yeah.
very, very good.
What's that art? Yeah, I'm kidding. I guess and when they do the STEAM as opposed to STEM, when they added art, you're like, you guys still
Um,
aren't giving us a budget.
right. So the I think the encouragement to keep young people in that area came from the jobs that were available and are available to you when you get out in these professions. So if you're in the medical field or you're in the IT field, and you're between Duke or Carolina or Central, like
Even
you know
banking is big here.
huh?
With banking is also big here.
Yeah, and I mean Duke has a big economics department. I know a lot of people that
Big on
went
it.
from econ majors at Duke to working on Wall Street, and living in New York. And like I think for that side of it, like they're hiring a lot of people of color, but then a lot of people are coming from other places, which has made the city very diverse. And because of the level of higher educated people that live in that area, there's a lot of progressive things, which, like you said, doesn't diminish the fact that, like, really you need to know, like, who your who your mayor is, who your local congressman is, who the
Support the
Senate,
art
you know,
school.
right,
Yeah.
and really understand, even the Chamber of Commerce, and understanding, like, where they are and what they're supporting. And
Mhm.
um but in terms of like Durham, uh well, North Carolina as a state that supports arts, it's hard for people to really connect to each other in
Mhm.
that sense, and it's
I
even
think, like, since HB2 happened, that's when the demise kinda happened with the arts community because it just divided everyone politically in a way where it was an issue of you're gonna allow transsexuals into our bathrooms and and their pet, like there was this whole thing of scaremongering a lot of the same stuff they did with Women on Fire, to bring that up, or
harder.
Tulsa, in that sense, where it
Right,
was a divide and conquer type of thing, and it just kind of separated us from them in a way, from artists who depended on the film industry, the live music industry, because like so many things pulled out, like Pearl Jam, um, they just filed bankruptcy. Cirque du Soleil, and all these
right.
different things stopped performing here, and
Mhm.
like Marvel was one, like they had just finished doing Iron Man 3. They left, Homeland left, like everybody left after that. And the film industry kind of never really has gotten to that same place because there's also all these new moral laws they put in as well during Pat McCrory's while he was a governor, which caused a lot of that. That's why I'm like, they don't support in a way where we can make money too. North
right.
Carolina to be third in the nation for filming. And it was funny, like after I had my daughter, I was making more money as an actor and model than I did before having her because I was doing a lot more commercial work and professional women type. I blamed it, or not blamed it, but I thought because of Michelle Obama being in office that, oh, now they see us professionals. So I get to play professionals and got to be engineers and play all these different roles. And then all of a sudden it all went crashing. As soon as he left, or as soon as that happened, it just died. And
Wow.
it became more of a moral thing where like you, even with like gay marriage passing, like it seemed to bring that back up and everything. You're like,
I
here we
will
go.
say
You guys were like cool when they were just living next to you, but now they want to get married. It's a
right.
problem. So yeah, but
I will say there are way more music venues in Durham now than there were when I was in college. Like I think that was
yeah, it's
definitely
just
an
Brett's open
improvement.
mic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but then you've got like Motor Co. wasn't there
Oh,
when
right.
I was there, and there's probably like 4 or 5 other. Uh,
Liato, the Ritz.
yeah, the Ritz was there.
Oh yeah, Lincoln Theater is here.
Lincoln was
I just
there,
remember going to Catskill because probably because I
right?
lived in Orange
But I guess specifically,
County.
well,
I didn't know.
we used to have to do that, but specific to Durham now, Durham has like the Durham Hotel rooftop is now like a well-known music venue.
I can't think
Uh,
of the name. It's at a hotel. It's like very 60s with the pool as well. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah,
Uh,
Terminator X sometimes will play there.
wow, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, what? Because he lives in North Carolina. Funny enough. Well, I don't know if that's like public knowledge, but needless to say, he used to. Maybe he moved.
But I think or I
Yeah,
would like to think that post COVID will be a very like positive time for North
mhm.
Carolina,
I
you
think
know,
so.
for Durham, I should say,
I think for the nation, it'll be different because we've all had the pause button to really educate ourselves about what's been going on. And there's
mm,
really no excuse because social media has been, I mean, like, you can't get away from it no matter where you are now.
right,
And
right.
it's kind
And
of, yeah. Oh,
people coming in to perform, in the area, and then like you said, the even the film side of it is the what is it, DreamWorks, is that Wilmington?
no, I know what you're talking about. Screen gems.
Screen Gems, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with the things that have been happening in California with the laws,
Yeah.
um, I mean, years ago, when they started choosing New Orleans as shooting spots over LA, I think that was the beginning.
Big tax
Yeah,
incentives.
and it also created North Carolina being, a potential shooting site,
North
which
Carolina started like around Bull Durham. That's when it started with Dirty Dancing, Bull Durham. I'm trying to think some of the like my dad did the movie The White Girl here, but then they would do a lot of movie of the weeks because we did one that was about Brown versus
Board of Ed.
Board of Education. Sorry, and I was like Thurgood Marshall movie. There was a lot, and I did like a funny enough, I did a film about. Well, I was a makeup artist on it for a film that was part of the civil rights movement, and so that was a tough day at work or week at
Wow.
work because it was about the sit-ins and it was for the Civil Rights Museum, and so all the white actors had to scream and do all of those horrible things to those actors. And
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's a very,
it's
yeah,
a
that,
tough
that I guess that's always been one of the hardest things for me to like not attach an actor's
Mhm.
portrayal to
No,
like
either
personality,
way,
who they are,
yeah.
yeah, who they really are in real life. Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, that can go both ways with like Mel Gibson, like I'm so crushed, all those lethal weapons. Yeah, I'm like, I could never watch them again with or Ransom for that matter.
And it's weird.
Yeah.
We get a lot of that too. Like,
Mhm.
especially if you are touring and like, playing on TV and you're in prominent things like, like
Mhm.
people see you and kind of assume, like, oh, I gotta, you know, I must smoke weed because I'm not.
Right, like they did with Zendaya with her having the braids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Like, I couldn't work while I had braids here, so
mm-hmm.
I was even thinking, even, like, recently with just some of the things you could end up saying and you get canceled for forever, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a very like like it's such a weird thing, but like like it's like you always have to be aware of way more than you did, you know, um, however many years ago, and definitely like I think you know like pre social media, I mean, like for like my dad, like you didn't have like, oh, there was this Luther Vandross concert and he passed out and here it is on social media, and and then you're looking at who got tagged and trying to reach out to people for it's like it's weird now, like and
and the rush to be first and not necessarily
yeah,
accurate.
and then even on that front, like I never was really into like the corporate world, but like when I did find out early, well, not early on, I don't want to say that, and early into my adult life when social media happened, that like if you worked for a company, if you were then and you said something on social media, like the HR company could contact you for saying something crazy on Twitter, which for music and art, and you were supposed to be using that platform to advocate for whatever you believe in, like a Colin Kaepernick, or like a, I don't know, like a Rihanna, or
The Me Too, Time's Up movement even, like, or Black Lives Matter, yeah.
yeah, like the whole music is a reflection of society, and it always has been from a social perspective. So like if you are a representative of your social environment, you have to speak on those things, whether you are either advocating for them or advocating against them, be it gun violence, be it you know drugs, be it whatever. But then now the culture is like, if you, I mean, even down to like this is kind of separate, but like the whole Kevin Hart hosting the, what was it, the Oscars
Mhm,
thing,
mhm.
and then like the tweet was like 7 years old, or I don't know the story, but it was old, and then
Yeah,
like they came back and it was like,
and he said he had apologized already before for it, which my thing with that was just if you're still apologetic, we're just apologize again. But I get the idea of like, why do I have to keep well, delete it? Don't let them keep being able
right,
to bring it up.
right,
Right? Like, but
which,
it's funny. I had a guy on Monday who is Fidesz, where he does social, not social, but internet. Oh, now I can't think of the word, your persona basically online. Like he helps clearing it up if you didn't get arrested or if there's a tweet. But
mhm,
it's real easy for an HR department to just download your entire social media, put it into a system, and it can find what words you might have said, and you don't even remember ever saying things. But at
right.
the same time, it's like, what did you think was
And
gonna happen when you wrote
what
it?
I'm
Like,
what I'm
yeah.
starting to realize is that I think to me it's creating this weird counterculture, in a
Mm,
sense, like the example of it for me being the August Alsina scenario, where now he's like the opposite of that, like, yeah, I said it, you know what I mean, like, you
And
know,
here's the record about it. You want to hear it? Here you go.
yeah, like that.
You
That's
should be ashamed. You should
that's
all be ashamed. Yeah.
that's never been, or even
I mean, I know Tupac did the one with Biggie about faith, but it wasn't a common thing.
you know
Or
what I mean? Yeah,
yeah,
it wasn't like
even like I think back now when I listen to the like Funky Cole Medina came on, I'm like, ooh, that wouldn't work nowadays.
right,
That's
right,
oh,
or
yeah,
Billie Jean, you know.
pretty young thing. Yeah.
And even on the other side, like I did, we didn't talk about it, but I'm playing drums on the entire John Legend Christmas album,
Oh, I love
and
yeah.
they got a bunch under a bunch of scrutiny for the duet that John and Kelly Clarkson did, because I guess Baby It's Cold Outside, the lyrical content was like, I guess, creepy
Yeah.
for today's standards. So they went and made it like this.
It's like a coercion.
It's like a Me Too friendly version of it. And so it got all this like criticism because people felt like they should have left it alone. But that was the time. Like this is yeah, like you said, like Weinstein and Bill Cosby, and this was last December,
Mm.
and so they were trying to be, I guess, sensitive to all the things that were happening at the time, which even brings up another point to me. Like, I don't know how I feel about the Washington Redskins name being taken off. Now, granted, I don't want to, like, not from a ruffling feathers standpoint,
Yeah, yeah.
like I I don't know. I feel like,
I mean, how would you feel if it was like the Coonskins?
well, yes,
To put
and
it
from
in the
that
same
perspective,
context. That's
yeah,
why I'm like, I've
I
always hated the name.
I
I was like,
I
I
I,
couldn't believe it when I moved here.
it was interesting. Like I saw a Native American talk about how it was for him, like a representative of his heritage and an honoring of it. And so so that happened, and then Shannon Sharp did this whole thing about talking about, like, if you really want to talk about race relations, you have to start digging into things that, like, the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence own slaves and have like black kids, and and it's like they
Hmm.
wiped out the history books of all this other stuff. And I'm kind of like, I honestly, without like with all this that we're talking about, without getting myself in trouble, I need to do more research
Still
on
work in the
the
industry.
name, on the name of the Redskins, as
Yeah.
opposed to it being like, yeah, like you said, like the Coonskins. Um,
I mean, because you can always find in every group someone that might be like, oh, well, I'm okay with it because, like, I remember when it made that transition from Native American when it was just Indian, or then it was like Indian American, and a lot of natives, because like we have Lumbee descent, it was a big like I went to a lot of the powwows and stuff, and so like they would make a point of saying how much they hated the term Indian, but then there would be shirts there for sale that was like Indian princess. Like it was
mm,
a lot of contrasts. Like it depends
and
on how you were raised with it or how you identified. And
and I
now
feel
that there's so many people here from India, it even feels weird calling them Indian because I got so used to be like, I don't know what to say
right,
anymore because I don't feel like I look like I'm of the culture, but I'm at the same
right.
time like I know enough not to say it.
And I
So.
guess I feel like they've been the Native Americans have been wiped out of
Mhm.
history, wiped out of it.
Moved completely from their land,
You
taken
know,
away from all their culture and language, much like we were in that sense, like
yeah, no,
stolen
absolutely. And
heritage and so
so
on. So
it was kind of like, I mean, there's other ways, like taking that away almost like takes away the reminder of what it is. You know what I
mm,
mean? And I guess maybe that's the issue that I take with it. Like, outside of, like, a couple casinos,
mm,
there's there's really no representation, and there's no reminder of what really actually happened, you know.
yeah, I
Um,
never really think of it that way because I still go to powwows.
yeah,
Or,
yeah. So I
like
mean,
I do make my daughter go to stuff, but I see what you mean in that sense. Like um, there's not a lot of representation, and Thanksgiving does not count.
no, and I mean, I don't know So I saw it. I didn't get to read it, but I guess today on ESPN they were talking about how they presented what the new name was going to be, and I didn't get a chance to read it.
I think they just kept it as Washington football team or something like that. It's temporary apparently, but not even the Red Tails like they were talking about.
And that's the thing. Like, I feel like if there was a team that had reference to African Americans, and I guess let me also say this: if Redskin basically is flat out slur, then okay, but I saw this one guy, this Native American, who was like we don't all feel that way, and we were taught to be like proud of our heritage, and now I
because of, like some of the wording with it as well, because it's also about scalping and just the salvagey aspect of the game. So it's reinforcing the negative stereotypes of Native American as well, as opposed to the culture of it all and the family and just the importance of taking care of the land and the earth and all of that. Like it's not really that representative. And even like in the strong nature of a chief or a warrior, it's more of the
that's the thing.
reconfirming that part.
If you're gonna change it to represent that and keep the Native American energy on what the team is, as opposed to I mean, because I can't think of, I guess
they don't want you to wear the costumes as if it's like the headdress, like it's
the guy came on. I guess Lando Lakes took their logo off, and Aunt Jemima took their logo off.
Now I can understand the Land Lakes.
I was like,
I mean, it was in a nice way. It was about nature. I could see. Granted, if you're not of a native company, I could see how that could be kind of like, why do you use this as your logo, but you don't have Americans that work at the company?
In the same spectrum of this entire conversation, I think a lot of what happened with George Floyd sparked a lot of these things. But then, like, the actor who plays Cleveland stepped and I could understand from his perspective how he felt like he was appropriating. I mean, but
it's hard to get roles as people of color in the entertainment industry. So to take one from them, I think that's intentional. Like what you're doing, and you're playing up stereotypes or certain like things that maybe we wouldn't want to play, in the first place. Like, no, I'm not faking urban and doing or playing dumb or something. But and it goes further than that with like stand-ins or stunt, like train people to be able to take that. Don't just put them in blackface. I mean, I get where they're like, well, they're actors, they don't play a race, and I'm like,
and granted,
I mean, I get how maybe on the other side where Cree Summer can play every voice under the sun, and that's amazing, but she's also biracial, so technically she can. But I think until those opportunities are equal in that way, where we get to play as many white, Asian, everybody else as well roles, then come on, let's share the pie. But as long as we're always getting the smallest piece, then no, you don't get to come and take our piece too. Is the way I feel about it.
Yeah, and I think the way that all of this happened is a very healthy place to start from. But I'm also aware that this is also dividing the country alongside of what is being put in place to distract us from this next election. Not that it's not, like, and I'm not saying that I don't think that George Floyd and how the nation has responded, I think that's very valid. I think we do need to talk about it. I think we do need to like come to a higher self as human beings and function. And I
And
think
really love our neighbor as ourselves.
yes, yes.
You
But
know,
I don't foresee any kind of resolve in the level of awareness until like after the election.
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think it all depends if we have a leader that wants to bring us together after the election or wants to keep us kind of divided and conquered so that he's
Mm,
always fear mongering amongst the poor in a way where if you're like if you don't rehire me then you're never going to have a job, your kids aren't going to go to school, like scaring them that way.
mm,
And then on the other side, I think that it's important that we do, if we notice that maybe some of our friends, people, or whatever aren't on the same side politically or whatever, that we're not so quick to cancel them off, but just try to see things in a way or have those conversations that maybe they can see things your way. Because a lot of it is just because it doesn't affect them. They have blinders on. Like life is hard enough just
absolutely,
being who you are to even start
absolutely.
having to care about LGBTQ plus
You
rights
know,
or other
and
or Asian rights.
you know,
It's a lot.
yeah, no, and even like the understanding of being ignorant to what
Mhm.
systemic racism, it's a very intangible thing to where and that was the other piece that Shannon Sharp was kind of giving it, like, when the slaves were brought here, that was kind of the start of having someone to look down upon, which
Human.
and so like in turn, yeah, and like you said, the redlining, like and just the awareness of those things, like yeah, I think it's going to create a good thing. But even with the Me Too campaign, I think it put like like it almost like made me fearful in a
Mhm.
sense, like like I don't want to interact,
Yeah.
I
No, I
mean,
see what you mean. I see. I want to save you just in case, because
huh?
I was like, let me save you a little bit because I think what you mean by that in the sense of like you don't want for it to be to a point where you can't have any interaction with people. So they're at a point where like I'm not even going to hire them because it's too much. I might not be able.
No, I guess
Yeah.
more like I like I'm not that type of person in terms of but thank you for that, like
Yeah.
making inappropriate
Right.
comments in that sense, but like being aware that like I don't know, like the things that you used to do out of courtesy, you know
Mm.
you
Opening your
don't
door
want
or
that you don't want that to turn into a potential like issue. And I'm not talking about anything like physical, like a hand on a
something.
back, nothing like that, you know what I mean? But like
No, on set, it used to be very common to double kiss whenever you saw someone gay, straight, black,
mhm.
white. It was very common. And I remember like one time it was a little too close to my mouth type of thing. I was like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't need to
yeah,
do
and
that, but yeah.
almost just afraid to be like, thank you very much, and
Mhm.
then somebody being like, well, what do you mean?
Mm,
Like from that perspective, not like or like or even like interacting with artists or interacting with people after like a performance, and like you know shaking their hand or you
I get
know
nervous when people wanted me to interview them at hotel rooms now. I'm like, nope, I know what happened with Mike Tyson. Like, it doesn't matter. But the
yeah,
perception was, well, why did she go up there to his hotel room?
yeah,
That's
and
where the interview was, or that's where I was told to meet him.
mhm,
Like that was
mhm.
very common before.
And that I completely feel, and like the
Not wanting
examples
to,
that the
sorry,
people
just even with Run DMC and all of that, I was scared of going there by myself until there was a man.
absolutely, no,
Not the
absolutely,
performers, it's the entourage sometimes are just they were
absolutely,
drinking the whole time. A girl
absolutely,
in the back, she must
absolutely.
be groupie. Nope. So
Right. And that's the thing, like, the people who have been made an example of,
mhm,
absolutely. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And then, you know, then there's just, I think another, an another side to it that can be manipulated a certain way that get people caught up when their intention was never to do anything like that, you know. And I guess from the whole point being that that movement kind of made it like you had to put very like a glove of awareness on in terms of how you dealt with people, which I think is good. And like you want, you know, you want to like respect your peers of other
Mhm.
genders, you know.
Right. Not
And if
everybody
the
feels safe
general
at work.
awareness
Yeah.
was that, then yes. And if the to say that is that if the general awareness of what's happening now in terms of Black Lives Matter,
Hmm.
you know, I I think I wanted to have this other like kind of almost respectful awareness
Hmm.
as opposed to a satiristic
Yeah. Or a
thing
marketing
that
ploy.
huh.
Or like a marketing ploy, even with it just being a black square and a
Yeah,
hashtag.
I
Go
think that,
beyond
you know,
that.
at some point like Me Too kind of had like this that thing,
Hmm.
you know. And yeah, like I am, yeah, completely like supportive of what it is. I just don't want it to be used, you know, out of in a incorrect context. And I
Hmm.
have respect for and support, you know, like people being treated fairly, which is even, you know, a lot of what Black Lives Matter is about. So it
Right.
not, you know, um and then because the underlining point is like almost like trusting like in both cases the intentions of human beings,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. And that is kind of where like, you know, I look at like, you know, some of the people, and I don't remember, you know, there's been, you know, certain cases like nobody does false racism per se, you know what I mean, like, but there
Well, it's
was
funny though, because when all of this started coming out, it like sometimes you would, at least for me, sometimes I would think, well, maybe I wasn't as nice as I thought. Maybe I did do something, or maybe there was another reason why I didn't win certain things. Like I would, like I would second guess myself almost instead of being like, oh no, that was racism. Like I had
Mhm.
nothing to do with it. Or it was funny. I was talking to the guy yesterday about when I first moved out to LA and was trying to get somewhere to live. And at first I just thought it was, oh, it's because I'm an actor. Let me not say that anymore. And then I was like, oh no, it's because over the phone they think I'm white, and then when I show up, I'm black. They're like, "Ha ha, you're not going to live
Well,
here."
and you know, I didn't bring it up for that reason, but that first gig where they wanted somebody with long hair, you know, and that
Hmm.
whole image thing, like I couldn't be the black drummer in this all white band, you know, that was a rock band,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
like they told me I would be great for like a Britney Spears where like the band is in the background and they wear all black, but like this situation, like there's only four people on stage and they, you know, really like needed this drummer who like looked like Animal and had long hair. And it was like, okay, your intention may not even be racist, but it's because I'm black that I'm not that you don't want me on the gig. You know what I mean? And it was
Yeah.
very, very telling, you know.
And
Um,
that's like a Hollywood thing too, that it is so, or even with modeling as well, the same way where like body positivity and all of that's now a thing. And I remember being like, I've been dieting since I was 15, and now just anybody, well, not, not exactly like that. But I remember feeling some kind of way at first because I was like, how are they going to be able to fit into this? They're going to have to buy all this extra clothes now. And just like in my head, not thinking, wait, there's a whole group of clothes that I wasn't aware of because again, like I had my own blinders on, and that's something I had to like recognize in myself, even like no one, I mean, we all have our own prejudices or not even a son. Like I would have never thought of myself as being someone who treats somebody different for the way they looked, the same way I wouldn't want anybody to treat me that way. But that's what I was doing when I was thinking that way of like, I work very hard to be in a size 4 or smaller, and here I could have been eating this whole time or not working out, but that's not the case. Like they're still taller than me, I'm still the short girl on modeling standards because I'm like 5'6" and 3/4 or whatever. But you know, so I get it. I get it. And
Yeah, the entertainment industry, and like I said, I hope I didn't offend. I'm trying to be very open ended, like in the commentary. Like I'm not like pushing any position in any direction, because I definitely feel like there's clear amounts of racism in the entertainment industry and in the in film and
ism,
yeah,
sexism. Oh,
yeah,
there's a lot. Yeah.
yeah, like the sexism and the racism, and like I have definitely like honored it, on my own, time,
Mhm.
but I think this period is going to make it, there are like white musicians having very uncomfortable conversations with their black counterparts, and really making it a very healthy thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
understanding like, oh, okay, like there's certain parts of this that or no, this just needs to stop in general. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
certain parts of this that I wasn't aware of, but certain parts of this that need to stop. And then a lot of, from the musical perspective, a lot of these people are playing Black American originated art forms. You know what I
Right.
mean? So,
Like
like,
Elvis. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting um, concept. And I've had a couple conversations, with some of my white musician friends, and
Mhm.
like everybody's been like very like, you know, from a place of like learning,
Yeah.
and
And I think even to not to victim blame by any means, but to put some ownership on ourselves as well.
mhm,
That I think in the music industry, they really need to be more aware of the kind of lyrics and words that they're putting out there. Because I think about that time where Kendrick Lamar brought the white girl on stage and she said the N word because it was part of the lyrics. And it's just, I mean, I know tons of people that it would never feel that comfortable to say it around me regardless, but there's still that element of maybe we need to start making more songs that don't put us in the same stereotypes that we
right,
want to say in
right,
movies anymore, that we're
right,
like we can't have both sides of it and expect
right,
not to
and
have an effect. So we really need to start changing the narrative or have more than one options. Like there shouldn't just be one Macy Gray type or one Erica Badu type,
and
one Latifah, you know?
it's so wild that you say that. It's almost like, well, if Trump can say it, it's okay
Mm,
for me to say it.
mhm. So everybody's gonna start grabbing people by the, and
Yeah, 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 yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's the same thing in that sense where if we really even and I love Megan Thee Stallion songs or sometimes, but there's still like there needs to be a balance of it where we're still promoting more, I think, because words have power. And if you're only hearing songs or the only visuals or musics you have or sounds that you know of about Black people is through entertainment, then your perception, the way, because I mean, I went to an all white school where kids had never met a Black person before and they just assumed all the negative things they've seen on TV. They didn't assume the Bill Cosby show, which
Mhm.
now, but you know, it's that same thing. Like, I think it's good that we have like Blackish and some things on there that also in their show bring up these different things,
Mhm.
but we have to do more of it. I'm thinking and hoping because all these different conversations are happening now that there's going to be more people behind the scenes working like with writers and executives that will know when to step in so things like Gucci doesn't happen again with the blackface sweaters or H&M with the because I
Mhm.
mean like I talked to with Marcellus Reynolds, if there was a Black stylist there she would have said don't put that shirt on a Black boy and nothing would have happened, and then maybe Black kids would have even bought it, but because the way they don't, I mean, not they, but the yeah, I mean, the way the industry is that it's so much if you are only hiring within your own network or, like luckily you had a network where you were able to break into the industry, but there's so many times that you don't, or you didn't go to the right schools to meet the right people to get that job or to get in the opportunity or to get the free internship. You can't afford to do it in New York City for these different magazines or whatever. So there needs to be some way, some type of catalyst that brings more Black people into that, because like it's been said, a lot of our grandparents weren't able to go to college. And so like it's first generations, they don't know the game yet. So second generations, they may know some of it, but don't want to go through all of that because they've heard so much from their parents of the fights they had to do, and they don't want to fight again too. There's so many different levels of it that I'm glad all these conversations are happening. We have this kind of a pause button to really take it in, and maybe when things are open again.
Now, has it been a topic a lot in the interviews that you've had recently?
Kind of sneak it in it, because why not? Like, I asked a rapper, are you gonna keep saying the N-word? I'll ask, because it's like I don't have a network or anything behind me saying, don't you ask that, or you can't have like yesterday with Popcorn saying that Arsenio Hall got canceled because he brought Farrakhan on, and NBC told him not to. Like, I don't have anybody telling me I can't bring somebody on. So there's certain people that I was just like, but then there's some that I'm like, hey, if they're willing to come on, I'm going to ask these kinds of questions if I can, if it comes up, because I don't want to do salacious stuff. I'm not trying to do gotcha moments or anything like that. But at the same time, I'm just curious if they thought about it, or if it's something they can't, like their management team is making all the decisions and they're just happy to be off the pole. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, like I'm speaking from college educated parents, like I didn't have the same struggles, and I know I have my own privileges in that sense too, where I'm not even willing to do herpes commercials. So, like at the same token, like I want to have this conversation with people who are doing it, so then I can also see it from their perspective and maybe be like, oh, well, didn't think of it that way. That's the way you really talk in real life. Yeah, you wouldn't sound authentic if you started rapping and said ninja or hittas instead of
Right.
Yeah. But
that makes sense.
It's like almost 3 hours now.
Yes. Well,
I'm sure your family wants to spend time with you, and my daughter and keeps peeking in on me. So I think they might want to eat dinner. I hate cooking. So yeah.
No, I definitely appreciate the time, and thank you for everything. Thank you for the conversation,
great
interview, let's talk later, and I'll pass my mom's information over to you,
and your brothers for that matter too. Your brother as well. Yeah. And I have to say thank you for your dad for even introducing me to you. He trusted me enough with his baby boy. After I interviewed him. So I really appreciate you spending the time with me, because sometimes your parents are like, hey, I want you to do this thing with this girl on Facebook in North Carolina. Like, I don't know how he sold it. So, I realize sometimes now when I ask my dad to do stuff, I'm like, I probably could have worded that better to get him to say yes. So I appreciate that you did this as well, because it's been a great conversation, and I really enjoyed talking with you and learning all the behind the scenes, and even the wardrobe part of music. I had no idea. No idea. So thanks again.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a pleasure, and I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Eagle Bride.
Oh.
All right. Well, you have a good night. Well, I guess it is almost night there. Oh, you gotta go see Niia Wise. I think tonight's the last night you can see the comment. I don't know if it's on. Yeah, I think everywhere you can see it. Like today is supposed to be the closest. The comment outside.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. We still got a couple hours of daylight over here.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half after sunset is what Jeff Pulver says, and he likes to take photos of the moon and stars and stuff. I've been taking these classes, so the Mercury retrograde and all that stuff. Like, I'm so into that. So like, yeah, I'm learning a lot, so I know when not to schedule shows anymore.
Absolutely.
Well, again, thanks for being my guest. I really appreciate it.
For sure.
Oh, and make sure everybody follow. I was about to say your name wrong. Mr. Hampden on on Instagram. Iajhi. I'm dyslexic, so I'm like, Haiji? No, it's the other way, because there's an I at the beginning and I at the end. It's not fair. It's like, yeah, it's just not fair. Iajhi, follow him on Instagram. And is there anywhere else they can follow you, or
Facebook,
SoundCloud? Okay.
Facebook and Twitter and SoundCloud. Yes.
There we go. See? All right. Well, great.
My name.
It's all under your name.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks again, and you have a great night.
All right. You do the same.
I will.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for staying with me. If you guys are still around, I really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed the conversation just as much as I did. I honestly could have gone probably 2 more hours, but I do have a family that may require some other duties. I don't know. Probably not. But we need to go see the moon, or not the moon, the comet. Neowise, it's out tonight. Try to go see it if you can. It's supposed to be the closest. It's got a little green hinge to it, is what I was told. So check it out if you can. If you get any pictures, please, please, please tag me in it, because I love looking at star. Love looking at night sky pictures and doing all that kind of stuff. And I have the app on my phone and everything. So we're going to go run out and go look at the moon, and then I'll probably go cook dinner. So you guys have a great night. Make sure you follow me at The Real Camille Cower on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm CK on Air 1. So you can follow me there as well. And thanks again for hanging out with me. Tomorrow, I will be live with Rocky, the celebrity publicist who's worked with BET, VH1, MTV, BET, MTV, VH1. And he's worked with a lot of celebrities, and he's going to have all the tea on what that's like working as a publicist and helping them build that image and so on. So this will be very exciting to talk to him. He'll be here tomorrow. I'll be over at Instagram. So it won't be on YouTube. It won't be on Facebook. You gotta go check out my Instagram at The Real Camille Cower. And I look forward to seeing you guys over there. All right. Thanks. Have a great night. And I hope you're enjoying all the Comic-Con as well this weekend. I keep getting all these alerts on the side of all these wonderful panels that are going on right now, or will starting in 8 minutes. So enjoy. Have a great day. And I'll see you